Okay, so it says we're live,
Okay.
and I don't know if YouTube thinks we're live. Doesn't really seem to think we're live. So usually, and this is what I see most streamers do. Aha. Okay, we are now live. Just gonna pause this. Okay, great. All right, so hello everyone. I am Rachel, and today I will be debating my friend Josh on which gender is most affected by feminism. And so I'll hand the floor over to Josh. Josh, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Josh. Obviously, you can kind of see it right here. I have been a friend of Rachel and Emmanuel's for, 8 years. I've known you guys for 8 years.
8 years already?
Yeah, it's been 8 years.
Wow, gosh.
Yeah. So we've been really close for about 5.5 of those. I'm currently finishing up my last year in university as a business major. I focused in accounting and finance. I have a minor in physical education and a kind of double major in theology. Yeah, so took a long route. I've been in school for 7 years now. So yeah, it's been fun. So I'm sort of the token reactionary on this stream. So
Great. Well, I'm really looking forward to it and forward to hearing how in recent years you've come to some strong feelings on the subject.
Oh man. Yeah, it's weird. I just like everyone going into university, I sort of took the assumption that, oh, feminism is great. It's awesome. Great for society. And looking back, I can't realize it's tough to swallow how much of a simp I actually was.
Really? Wait, so I didn't realize that. So was it in university then that you had a positive view of feminism, or did you just kind of grow up with it, or where did that come from?
Well, you know how you just sort of assume some things to be true, such as don't eat this, it's poison. Then that's just kind of what you get from your parents, right? You have authority figures that say that. So growing up in high school, I went to, I think that at the time it was top 5 in the province high school. So really great teachers. It was a really good school. And I was educated far beyond my intelligence. And all of them just kind of had that narrative of, oh yeah, feminism is great and women can do anything. And if you don't think people just don't think that feminism is bad. And it was sort of these assumptions of how society was just structured. It's like, oh yeah, of course, feminism, great. And it's fine. So it wasn't any individual person saying that. It was just sort of modus operandi, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had that similar experience, but I guess too, part of me wonders if that's just kind of an earlier wave of feminism in a lot of ways. I think I look back to the female figures in my life, even my mom and my mother-in-law, for instance, and they do kind of have this feminist narrative in some ways where it's kind of seeking an egalitarian relationship, right? In their marriages and in their lives and these sorts of things, but they still in a lot of ways fill very feminine roles. I don't know, if it's just that maybe the teachers we grew up with kind of still had this view of well, feminism really was about equality, if you will, but they still lived rather traditional lives. And I feel it's really more in recent years that feminism has really hit us in the gut. I guess what I mean is, so for example, for women, if I look at the women before me, my mothers, if I look at it generationally, okay, my grandmother, feminism wasn't really, I'd say, big in her time. You weren't really seeing a lot of this kind of narrative. She was still, kind of cleaning. Okay, here we go. House cleaning is the best visual for this. Okay, you have the women in my grandmother's generation who these women cleaned to perfection. Okay, there was a pride in cleaning, a pride in hosting, and they were the ones who would like put a white glove on and like slide their finger over the windowsill, and if there was dust, you were cleaning it again, right? And then you have like my mother and her generation. They grew up with mothers like this, but they're kind of wrestling with this idea of like, oh, like, does it have to be this way? And they kind of wrestle with this like shame. There's like this battle of like, they never do as good a job as their mothers did, but part of them still believes they should, and they still sort of value this, but they also sort of reject it. And so in a lot of ways, these women, like, they say one thing, but they live another reality, right? Like, and I've heard this too, like from my mom, from my mother-in-law, from lots of women in that generation, where it's like, they value a clean home, but they also sort of begrudge the fact that they have to spend time doing that, you know, and there's still this like, sort of a bit more of an expectation of like some of the shared burden. And then you have my generation who like grew up with the mums that constantly stressed over a dirty house, but didn't actually like clean it like, enough. And so we kind of grow up with it just like, oh, well, forget it. Like, this isn't my role. Yeah. I don't need to fill this. And I, like, when I got married, I fully expected to like have equal chore division, like fully, you know, and this was like just one of those things where it was like, yeah, of course, like, who cares? Like, just because I'm a woman, like, just because I have ovaries doesn't mean that I should be doing the cleaning. And so I think it's very much like my mom's generation, even a generation before us, like they may have believed that feminism was good. Like feminism was kind of in the realm of language, but they didn't really fully live it. And I think now we're in that phase, in that generation where like we are so fully living the feminist narrative, like through and through. And I think like for me now that I'm like, okay, I guess you'd call me like, you know, one of those traditionalist women that, you know, I definitely have gone that route. But even for me as a very traditionalist, like I value traditional values, I still like through and through have swallowed the feminist narrative. Like fully, and like my full existence now is just like slowly trying to systematically like deprogram my mind.
Yeah, make yourself. Yeah. Did you start yourself as a tradcon?
A tradcon? Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's the word.
Like the Britney then kind of, I cooked my husband these store-bought cookies tradcon life for like the authentic tradcon life.
Yeah, that's still kind of where I'm at, but I envisioned something better.
I saw you made bread the other day, and it turned out okay. Well, it turned out really well. I was impressed. Yeah, weren't you making bread?
How do you know about that? Was Emmanuel telling you? He was like talking to you on Discord. Rachel's making bread for me.
Your husband was bragging about your your abilities in the kitchen, which is high praise.
Wow. Well, there you go. Thank you, sweetie. Sweetie, Emmanuel's like right here, by the way. Sorry, I wasn't calling you sweetie.
Oh, no. Anytime you say sweetie, I know exactly who you mean.
Ah, yes. Like, you know.
Yeah. Your tone of voice and just the way that you say it, it's like, oh, you're basically saying Emmanuel. It's like my brain makes no distinction between the two names.
It's so funny how it worked out that way too. Because the thing is, like, sweetie was a joke. Like Emmanuel and I, when we were first dating, like we laughed at that. Like we were like, oh, it'd be so funny. Like we need like love names for each other. And we were like, oh, sweetie, honey. And like they just caught on. And now like I actually call him sweetie for serious, which I'm still a little bit embarrassed about, but you know, it happens.
That's a lot of ways, those sort of nicknames really catch on. Like my brother, I rarely use his actual name because we have names that we call each other by. I call him Bibber and he calls me Junior. Bibber was really old. He had it when he was really, really small, when he was a baby. And he calls me Junior because he's an inch taller than me. Yeah, but it's funny how it just kind of started as a good little bit of borking and then turned into this really term of endearment. It's interesting. Yeah. So you brought something up that I thought was fascinating. Was okay. You kind of juxtaposed women now versus women back then, and how expectations seem to have changed. But if Tim Pool is to be trusted, and any of these surveys on OkCupid, women haven't changed their preferences. They've just changed what they've said.
Yes, I would agree with that. But do you have like a specific example?
Guys in dresses is gross. And it will always be gross. And there's this feminist writer that was, she wrote an article where she was talking about how her boyfriend had found this perfect dress that he was so excited about. And she's just, I'm not attracted to him at all. Yeah, really, really funny. It's like, she basically said, I want a lumberjack in plaid. Him in a dress does not do anything for me.
Yeah. So I have to say, Josh, you like that. What you just said here is like in perfect alignment with my main argument for why I think feminism has most negatively affected women over men.
Okay.
And here's why. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think at its core, feminism has gutted the female identity far more than it has the male identity. And what you just said actually exemplifies my point. Women, regardless of what comes out of their mouth, still have a preference. Like they still they'll like, even if you're like kind of a horrible misogynist pig, like you could probably still find yourself a plenty good woman. Like that's the reality. And like you'll hear people actually, they complain about this all the time. Like the whole like anomaly of like women dating jerks, right? And there's always this question of like, why do women like fall for men that are total jerks to them? Well, it goes right back to like this basic biological instinct. Okay, women want a strong man who will provide and care for their family. A man that will create a secure environment for which they can start nesting. Okay, we're programmed to seek this out. And so the reason women tend to date jerks is because, well, a lot of times when a man is a jerk to them, it makes them feel like at least that man is strong and stable. And there's something in the female brain that says, yep, like this is safe. If he's bullying me, if he's being mean to me, at least if I bring him on side, then he can protect me from whatever's mean and dangerous out there. And so the reality is women do. We still know what we want. We want strong men that know what they want out of life. And now I'm not saying, Kate, I think that there are plenty of women that like, if you're dating a jerk, I'm not saying it's like, oh, great, that's the ideal. Your biology's happy with you. No, like, I'm not saying all women want jerks, but we do want a strong man. And there were a lot of like moments that feminists would describe as like jerk moments that are actually exactly what a woman wants in a man. Like a woman wants a man that's not going to let her do whatever she wants and get her way all the time. Like when that happens, you become a monster. Like we've all met that kid, like that little kid that's just a total brat and you just want to punch him in the face. And then you meet his parents and you watch the parents just like pander to this child and explain away and, rush to do whatever this kid wants. Yeah. And all of a sudden, like your anger towards this kid just turns into a bit of sympathy. And you realize like, oh, this is why this kid is a horrible brat. And you realize like he's probably never heard the word no in his life. And one day he's really going to suffer for it. You kind of feel bad for the kid because you're like, you're a monster. Yes. But you're a monster that nobody can fix this for you. One day you'll have to wake up and realize everybody hates you and you're a horrible person. And you need to take responsibility and fix this for yourself because, and it's not even the kid's fault necessarily. And so anyway, I think it's like exactly this. Feminism has done exactly this for women. Like it turns us into monsters and we don't even realize it. And then we go through life equipped to constantly feel like the victim in all these situations where maybe we are the victim and maybe we're not. But the fact that we even have to go there in our heads every time makes us a worse person. It just does. And this is why I think women suffer from feminism far more than men do. Because I think like our very identity, the female, like we have no heroes. We have no heroes. The heroes we have are women that are virtually, they're men. They're men with boobs. Like, those are our heroes. And we're told that we should want to be that. And
well, they make the cover of Time magazine.
And they do. They do. You know, I've totally seen this. So, okay, to prepare for this stream, I will admit I watched a bunch of MGTOW content.
Good.
A ton. And so for those of you watching, if you don't know what MGTOW is like men going their own way. So, okay, these are the men that like basically are giving up on women altogether because feminism has just destroyed the world.
How far did he get? Like, did he get into turd flinging monkey and all his stuff?
Oh yeah, turd flinging monkey is my jam. Like, he's the first place I go.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Sinatra Says is not quite as radical, but TFM is just like so ad hoc. I love it. And I usually watch his stuff for a good laugh every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have. I think I have some pointed critiques to the MGTOW community for sure.
Oh yeah.
I think okay, the biggest problem with the MGTOW community is this. Okay, they think they're like completely opposed to feminism and they've rejected it. The problem is that they actually agree with the central premise of feminism. Okay, feminists argue that there is this patriarchy that is controlling the world and like putting women in their place, and that it's a terrible thing and we need to like overthrow the patriarchy. Okay, MGTOWs actually agree with that. They just disagree with the outcome. They're like, yeah, the patriarchy is great. Like, don't get rid of it. You know, it's like you're not actually that different from the feminists. Like, I actually believe that the patriarchy is the biggest lie you could possibly have pushed on the world. I don't believe there's a patriarchy, and maybe you disagree with me, but the thing is. The reason I don't believe there's a patriarchy is because I believe actually historically that the genders have worked cooperatively together to build society and raise families. And historically, we work together. The genders have worked together. And like the roles that we fill aren't just, because there's a patriarchy. Like, okay, the MGTOWs will argue that men are better at everything, hands down. Men are just better women. Like, okay, you brought up like, magazine. Right? They bring that up and they're like, look, evidence that men just make better women. Okay, they also say, they also use the chef example. Okay, this is like the typical go-to example. I know Turd Flinging Monkey uses this too. But, where they say like, here's evidence that men are better at women in everything. The top chefs are all men. Okay, the thing is, I think that argument is just a little bit disingenuous. I don't know if it's like maybe a little bit purposefully dense when you make that argument because, of course, all the top chefs are men. There is a established pattern that has been very well observed that women tend to drop out of careers to raise families, okay? And being a chef is a highly stressful, highly demanding career path. However, there's a difference between being the best cook career-wise and being the one who actually gets dinner on the table consistently 3 times a day. And the reality is that women are the gender that actually get meals on the table consistently. They may not be top chef material, but they are actually the ones that consistently put dinner together. And this, again, goes back to biological female strengths, okay? We are biologically programmed to raise children. If you don't feed your children 3 times a day, they die. Women are very good at monotonous, repetitive tasks. That's how you keep your babies alive. That's also what makes us incredibly good secretaries and assistants and incredibly good students. Women are consistently, statistically, far better students than men. Now, yes, we can definitely go into the feminization of education because I saw the look on your face and I know you want to go there, and we totally can.
Well, okay. So you brought up like 5 or 6 points. I don't want to bury the lead on too many of them. Which one are you most attached to? Because I think the chef argument, actually, all the MGTOW stuff. So yeah, kind of where do you want to start on your position?
all good questions. Okay, there's a ton of directions you can take it. I think I've sort of laid out the core of my position, which is I think women suffer more from feminism because it has gutted our identity at the core. And I have more on that, but why don't you just like respond and give maybe your core for why you see it differently? Because I know you do.
Well, you won on the point, though. One point that I agree with is that the feminine identity has been completely destroyed. And if you were going to go that direction, it has. Third wave feminism has completely erased women. And sorry, but yeah, men end up making better women. They do everything better than women do, except for one thing, which is men can't replicate.
Okay.
And that's really
okay. Go ahead.
That's really the narrative that's being pushed by the third wave feminists. You see, if you put women into sports, they're going to get dominated by men because, sorry, but testosterone is just the best. It makes you really, really strong, and it makes you really fast, and it makes your bones a lot more dense. And anytime you see high-level athletes that are training outside of their cycles, it just destroys them. And there's a lot of infertility problems in university athletes or world-class athletes because, quite honestly, they train women like men, and these women lose their periods. It's like awful. And with that comes all their sex hormones. So it's these really traumatic stories that part of the study for this was looking into some of these feminist, these feminist athletes, which is odd. Maybe it's a conspiracy theory. I think that might be why so many of them are gay. But that is a rabbit trail that Milo is better suited to than me.
Well, Milo's noted for saying that there's no such thing as a lesbian.
Is that remind me? Is it basically because he views female sexuality as a lot more fluid than male sexuality?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can jump on that point. Is like when you eliminate femininity, where do guys go? They're attracted to femininity, and it's not like they're fluid enough to just date men, because it's like you're gay or you're not, and then you end up with a bunch of women in relationships and a bunch of guys looking for partners that are all coupled up. So that's one of the sort of, I guess we'd call that an ad hoc argument that I could make on this point. But I really like the direction as far as destroying the femininity is. I really don't think that men make better women. I really think that women have some innate strengths. I was going to go into game design. All through high school. So one of the biggest missing demographics of competitive gaming is women. Like, girls just don't play first-person shooters or these kind of more combat-based hunting games. Which is essentially guys socially have kind of two choices in society: is you get to be a warrior or you get to be a breadwinner. And if you are not a sole breadwinner, you're considered an inferior man. And that's kind of the way that it's always been. And that still sticks around today. So when I started looking into these demographics, I found that women outnumber men on Candy Crush. And that was a really interesting statistic.
Yeah.
And I think exactly. So what's your take on that? I want to see if you're going to go the same way that I did.
Okay, well, sure. I mean, that's one of the interesting things. Absolutely. Like when people say women are not represented in gaming, they're just not looking at gaming. Because the reality is, like, I think the statistics are actually like 70 to 80%. I think it might be as high as 80% of mobile gamers are women.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing is, there's a difference. There's a difference in preference. And this is the thing that feminism tries to eliminate. This idea that there's such a thing as gender differences in like preference in what you do and these sorts of things. And the thing is, you can talk about video games, like it's so obvious in video games, but this plays out in the real world in career paths as well. But we can go there. But yeah, with gaming, that's absolutely an important thing to point out.
Yeah.
Women are in gaming. They just would prefer to play on their phones, and they tend to play, like, they like to play little repetitive puzzle games that they feel are less of a time investment, but end up being a big time investment anyway. Yeah.
So another crazy one is, if you look at where women spend their time in these, action RPGs, where do you think they spend most of their time? As far as if you were to give hours, where's the standout sort of difference between the guys and the girls in a game, say like Warframe? I know Emmanuel has just started playing Warframe.
Okay, so guys and girls are both playing Warframe, how do they split their time?
Yeah.
Okay, so I haven't played Warframe a ton. I've played a little bit.
I started you a Volt.
What?
I started you a character.
You started me a character?
Yeah, I think so. I logged in and I think I played on your email address. But
oh yeah. That's right, because I continued on your account. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if I know enough about Warframe to really know how women and men spend their time. But what I do know, okay, I'll just put this out there, like I tend to prefer games, like the grinding elements of games. I prefer like the games where you can build a base. So I like Minecraft. I like Don't Starve Together, right? I really like the games where like most of the game is trying not to starve and like foraging for resources and building a base.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So exactly. A lot of women spend time doing maintenance rather than adventuring. So in a game like Warframe, you're going to see a disproportionate amount of girls spend time customizing their character versus guys.
Sure.
Yeah, they'll spend time making sure that their base is in order, making sure the colors all match, and they're very, very good at it. It's like we can't. I think we really shouldn't disregard the kind of natural skill that women have. More men tend to be colorblind, and colorblindness is kind of a bizarre genetic. I mean, talk to David about that one. It's kind of a weird genetic thing because in World War II, men who are colorblind would be recruited for being spotters, and colorblindness lets you see shapes a whole lot better than regular full spectrum. But women can also see can distinguish colors better. So, and I think that goes back to picking berries that aren't poisonous, and you needed to be very good at it. So this is into that biological essentialist argument, is that women are naturally gifted at those sort of repetitive, what guys would consider to be monotonous tasks, but it's that grind, that maintenance, that cooking every single day that women seem to have this inherent advantage. And we're seeing that play out into careers like accounting. And I know accounting is a field that I'm trained in and have an opportunity to go into, is that women are actually really dominating in the accounting field right now. They're not dominating in finance. Finance is still basically a dude's club. And we can say that
because it's high risk, high reward.
Exactly. Guys are hunters. We want to go grab a very small stick to take down a very big animal. That way we can bring it back to the village and, feed our village and, win our women is.
Yeah. What's interesting on that front, when you talk about the differences, like there is definitely, you see these differences play out in the world. And like, I disagree with McTell's when they say, that women just shouldn't be in the job force at all because men can do everything better. Like, I agree with you. I think women are better in certain areas. And like a lot of the tasks, like, and the thing is too, they're not glamorous. And this is what just makes feminists so mad. Okay, the feminist narrative very much is, and it communicates this to women, is you're not a success unless you are filling a male role or a traditionally male role. Okay, you're not success unless you're taking power away from men. Okay, meaning if you're not the CEO, it doesn't count. And that's the thing, like it completely discounts any of the roles where women can do really, really well, like accounting, or, like data processing, data analysis, data entry, being an assistant, right? These sorts of things. Problem is that women are being fed this message of, oh, well, if you're not the hero, if you're not in the spotlight, you are a failure. And this goes right back to my point of women are suffering so much more because we're just totally torn apart inside. Like everything is failure, 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 unless you're filling a male role. And to be honest, women make crappy men. We do.
They do. So I don't think it's so much that men make better women, but women just don't make very good men.
Okay. So that's an interesting thought.
Alan Fox.
Except that, okay?
Okay.
Women, okay, and honestly, like getting Caitlyn Jenner on the cover of Time magazine, like doesn't count. Like that doesn't count because you have the progressives that are like pushing that narrative and they're really happy. They're just happy to like put somebody there and they're empowering like her, not necessarily trying to empower women with that. Like that's on its own other agenda. I think we could probably agree on that. Right.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like.
But it doesn't serve my purposes to agree with you there.
It doesn't. Okay, it may not serve your purposes, but I'm still right.
Yeah. It's like, unfortunately, I probably agree with you more than would make a more entertaining debate because I'm not spitting fire and saying, MGTOWs are right. MGTOWs are almost right, but they're sympathetic in my view. I just think that they haven't been fed the right ideology. They have no tools to do anything, which, yeah. But continue. I'm curious where you're going to go with this.
Sorry, I got totally distracted. You did something to your mic and it got super like crazy for a second, but I can hear you well now.
Okay.
I don't know if everyone else on the stream heard that, but it was exciting. Anyway, okay, you're excited to see where I was going with that. What's that exactly? Sorry.
Oh, your train of thought with Caitlyn Jenner as far as yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I just think like I think there is something to it. Like I get it. Like I said, I watched a lot of Turd Flinging Monkey preparing for this conversation. And I agree a lot with him in a lot of things that he says. And when he does say, men make better women in every field. He says in every field except for replicating. Kind of what exactly word for word what you just said. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure it may offend my sensibilities, but I'm still like enough of an intellectual that I'll be like, okay, like let's consider this. And there was a day after listening to a ton of his content that I was like, women are worms. I can pick myself back up.
I'm glad you got to the same point that I did, just a different route, Like I said, there was 2 times where Emmanuel had to talk me off the edge. I was just like, women suck. Women suck.
Yeah.
And you've got me at a disadvantage because I tried watching feminist frequency and, TED Talks about feminism and reading feminist. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing.
They all got ratioed so hard.
You can't watch feminist frequency to try to find how women aren't harmed by feminism. I can't get through it. But anyway, there are so many places that I could take this, but I'm trying to stay focused. Okay, so what my point with Caitlyn Jenner was, Caitlyn Jenner is not a very good example of how men make better women because there's a lot of other agendas pushing to have that kind of stuff on the front of the magazine. The authors of that magazine, the editors, are not necessarily thinking of let's promote the feminine. Let's promote women with this. They're on their own happy agenda and we don't need to go there. But
that sounds a little turfy.
Turfy? What do you mean?
Oh, just, let's not promote feminism, but you've got Caitlyn Jenner on the front of your magazine. That sounds a little turfy, Rachel, Well, the turfs,
I know what you mean. I think my point with that is it's not a great example of a replacement, how men make better women, because he's not necessarily the thing is, here's the question. Would men recognize Caitlyn Jenner as a better woman? I don't think so, right? Just because she's on a magazine doesn't really mean that society or men in general are going to like recognize that as like, oh yeah, this is the feminine ideal. It's not. It's a narrative. It's an agenda. It's, you know.
It depends. Are we talking from the waist up? Because I bet you gravity doesn't affect Caitlyn Jenner like it does most women at her age.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't really want to go there.
Yeah.
But I think, though, that like when men argue, okay, men make better women than women do. Okay, they use the chef example. They use the Caitlyn Jenner example, which I think are weak examples. However, it's not to say that there isn't perhaps some merit in this. And I think where a lot of this statement comes from, okay, and there are a lot of men that want to be fathers that have had very, very unfortunate divorces. And I think this is where this is where I'd say, okay, if men want to argue how feminism has most brutalized men, I'm making your argument here for you. I think this is the strongest argument for men, is when you go into families and divorces and custody. Okay, I think men have been just horribly wronged in this situation. In every path, women have the power when it comes to custody and the better end of divorce.
So now you figured out some kind of the bedrock of I'm glad you got to the bedrock of the MGTOWs. And this is where I think when I discovered the MGTOW community, they make some really good points. Is that divorce courts? That's one of my main points over here. Is that civil court is brutal on men, and we know that. It makes sense. That's fairly well established, especially for your viewers that are probably watching this. I don't need to really prove my point on that one. You can just, to quote Cenk Uygur, Google it. Go Google it. And you're going to find all kinds of horror stories of how men just get beat up in divorce court. Now, to be said, my neighbor is ex-neighbor. She's going through divorce, and her husband's psychotic. Like, there's been times where in a more forgiving legal system, I probably would have found him with my brother and had a stern chat with him about where he was hiding his assets, and he needed to stop gaslighting his kids, because he verbatim told her, I'm not going to stop until you're on the street. Right. And he's like stalked her. So there are awful toxic men out there. And I bet she hasn't fought fair, and I am being far too even-handed on this situation to really make a strong point for men. But I think disproportionately men have been abused with divorce courts. There's that new movie, with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. Upper Echelon did a brilliant video about it, and he talked about why he hates this movie. And what I think, for anyone watching, or if you can go watch it, he makes a really good point about how it was just emotionally traumatic for him to watch this movie, knowing that this girl was being portrayed as the hero, and she really ruins this man. And for him, it was really tough to watch. And for me as well, knowing that Hollywood is trying to portray Scarlett Johansson as the victim, and really it's like Adam Driver just completely outacts her and is just destroyed by her through divorce court, gaslighting, basically signs up with a lawyer, and the lawyer says, nope, you can take him for all he's worth. And she goes, they just decide to get a divorce, and they're going to make it, fairly reasonable. My dad was divorced. So I'm his second litter of children, but they did a really good job of the divorce. They did split under really good terms. They didn't ever fight too much. My brother had a really great childhood, spent summers with my dad, and then school years with his mom. And it's like, to this day, my little brother was dancing with my dad's ex-wife at my brother's wedding. So there are really good, easy divorces. And that's sort of what Scarlett Johansson goes into this movie wanting to do. But then the lawyer just says, nah, take it for all he's worth. You can get away with it. And it's just brutal. So yeah, that's sort of the foundation of it, I think it extends a little bit further than just the divorce court. I really think there's sort of a social aspect to this that guys really got a raw deal.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, is this? I'm sorry, I haven't seen the movie. Is it from a like feminist perspective, or is it more from like a men's rights perspective? Like, where's the lens of the movie?
Typical Hollywood, you know.
It's typical Hollywood. Okay, so he hates the movie because it's brutal to this man, but the movie itself is not necessarily self-aware of that.
Yeah, it's like it's completely unironically making her the victim of this. But as soon as you're aware of some of these men's issues, and it's Adam Driver, like Adam Driver carried the entire Star Wars franchise on his back for the past 3 movies. Adam Driver just outacts her, and you just see this guy get torn apart. And sometimes you see what it does. And it's not uncommon for one of the main effects of divorce on men is to find them in a hotel room with a revolver and an ounce of Jack next to them. Is guys kill themselves a lot, like a surprising amount after divorces. Just because the girls literally just suck them dry. Joe Rogan had a guest on, and he said one of his the big argument with divorce court is that if an engineer marries a hairdresser, then they get married and have 2 kids. Well, in the divorce settlement, you start out like this, and then in the divorce settlement, they're going to basically even out both parties so that the kids can have a normal life. But hairdressers don't make as much as engineers, so what they're going to do is they're going to just bring the hairdresser up to living the same lifestyle as she was when she was married to an engineer, which just, he said this guy was just worked in Hollywood, was paying $200,000 a year to have her boyfriend screw him in his house, and just and see his kids like 2 weeks a year. So, yeah, that's typical from what I hear, like fairly common with divorce courts. There's even some. I know Wisconsin has a law that if you divorce a woman who's pregnant, not with your kid, but she's married to you, you got to pay that child support.
Sorry, Josh. Sorry. 1 second. Emmanuel's trying to get my attention. What is it?
Okay.
Oh, thanks. Okay. All right. Hey, also, it's getting really dark. Would you mind plugging in the light right here? Okay. Sorry about that, Josh.
Oh, no problem. So the law in Wisconsin, it's basically if a girl gets pregnant screwing someone outside of your marriage, well, you still have to cover that child support, even though it's not your kid, if you divorce her. And that just seems like really predatory to me, and just absolutely not. I'm not a big fan of infidelity. To put it mildly. And that's awful. Like there's no way to equate that on the male side of things. Is if a guy gets a girl pregnant, there's no way that the wife pays child support for that kid, because there's no there's no way to make an equivalency to men. But that's just one of the things about divorce, about the civil system, that really just gives men a raw deal.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely the worst example. Okay. If we want to talk about how like feminism has ruined things for men. And the thing is, though, I don't know entirely how much that's I mean, I guess it is feminism that's responsible for how that goes. I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about the history and the roots of it. So, right? Because I think part of that is like mother. I don't know.
I think it's an archaic law. I don't blame feminism for that one. I really think it's an archaic law is set up to protect women from divorce, which is where a lot of these laws come from, is that this isn't really feminism that gave them a raw deal. It's guys giving each other raw deals. Because when this law was established, we didn't have DNA tests. We couldn't just say, I'm going to get you. Like, I told you that's not my baby, unless, it comes out the wrong color. That's pretty telling.
Sure. Yeah.
But even then, like, there's they could have just cried rape, and guys would have said, "Oh man, it was terrible. Let's go lynch somebody." And I think that's sort of what happened during the Oklahoma riots. Is they always had that out, but that was really a system set up to protect women, which I kind of agree with. Is that I've never seen a male fantasy that says we're gonna get. It's always we want to be the champion to save the maiden. Is the ultimate power fantasy for a guy is saving her from being raped by another man and absolutely beating that guy up. Is that is the ultimate power fantasy for most guys. And feminists don't really understand that. They have this sort of weird idea that men, guys like fist bump each other about, I totally raped her. It's just this really twisted.
Yeah, they create this like battle of the genders that I think is just, well, it's not, I don't think it's historically correct, and it's not even really correct. Like, I kind of grew up with that attitude of like, oh yeah, like, us women have to, fend for ourselves or whatever. But the thing is, at my core, I still always wanted to like find a husband, partner with him, have him be like my priority above all else, family. And, like, I don't have this like sisterly bond with all women. No, like I'll side with my husband over anything, and I think I kind of grew up always believing that that was the ideal and that's what would happen, regardless of what I said on that front. But I do think that like, okay, this whole divorces and custody and this sorts of thing, and what you point out about it being, a system that was initially created to protect women. I think this is where feminism, and again, I'm making your argument for you, but I think this is really where feminism really guts men in so many ways, is that we do have a history of the system being built to protect women, because in a lot of ways, women were putting themselves under the protection of their husbands. And that was really where they, like, if they weren't married, I mean, even in the Bible, they have like care for widows and orphans, right? Like widows were really seen as like, man, life is really rough for you because the man was your provider. He was your opportunity. Now we have replaced that. We have replaced men as providers with the government.
Yeah.
And yet still expect men to fill this role. And I think this is where, I've definitely heard this from some MGTOWs saying like, what the heck? Like, this is messed up. It's like women want equality, but they still in a lot of ways treat men like they're disposable. Well, we want you to risk life and limb in the military, saving us, these sorts of things. Yes, there is a feminist push for women to get into military, but the thing is, they still don't want to be drafted. And like, there's a great clip of Hillary Clinton actually being asked this, and she's totally carried that like feminist flag. And then she's put on the spot and she's asked like, oh, well, you want perfect equality? Should women be available for the draft? And she was like, I'm not sure the benefits of that. Like, I don't know that we need to go that far. And it's like, exactly. I think feminism has pushed for like, men are still that sacrificial lamb in a lot of ways. We want you to be the provider. We want you to put in the work. We want you to, put your lives on the line to defend home and country and wife. And yet we have also replaced you in every way so that we can toss you away whenever we feel like it. And you still pay alimony. And I think I really understand where men are coming from in this. However, these are all very material concerns in a lot of ways. Okay, yes, maybe there are men that are going to like be so mad at me for saying this, because it's like, okay, yes, fighting for the right to see your child is not exactly material. Like, that's really affecting you heart and soul. And this is where I say I think that's the strongest argument here for men being most harmed by feminism, is through these cases, divorce, when children are involved. However, I think on a psychological level, women, like, okay, you're going to be so mad at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Yeah, it is way worse to be the monster. It is. It sucks to be the monster. It really sucks so much, because you don't know what you want anymore. You don't know what is success, and you bring conflict everywhere you go, and yet you still feel like the victim. And it's like going through life with blinders on, where you don't even see where you've gone wrong, and yet you're the source of the conflict around you. And this is why like feminism has just like torn women apart. And I have some scenarios that I can give you, but you look like you had something to say.
No, I really like that you brought this up. And I think that this is one of my points is social contracts. This is where we can start differentiating about how men get the raw deal. And this is probably one of the more interesting ones to talk about that isn't material, that is very clear, that really clearly shows feminism versus masculinity and how they ended up being pitted against each other. And these social contracts is one of the best ways to just give people a really tangible way to look at it. So yeah, let's deep dive on this one. Now we are coming up to 50 minutes. I need to just get up and walk around for like 2 minutes. I've got a pinched nerve in my back right now, and possibly like 3 compressed discs. Yeah. Like I'm 6'3", so just for the people that don't know, I don't fit in the back of sedans. I'm about that much too tall. So I went on a ski trip this weekend, and being cheap, it's $15 to get out there, and plus a 50% discount at the hill. But I had to sit in the back of a sedan, and I ended up like pinching my sciatic nerve and compressing one of my discs. Yeah, it's like I had no idea that sitting in a sedan. I knew that sitting is bad for my back because this is like a chronic issue that has to do with sports. But yeah, don't sit in sedans when you're tall. Yeah, but yes. Let's deep dive on this. If we can pause for like 2 minutes, I'm going to refill my water.
Sure. And I don't really know how to like pause the stream, but
does that work?
Well, I don't know. We could figure something out, I guess.
Basically, I just need to get up, walk around a little bit, and then I need to sit back down. I just stretch out my back.
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah,
okay.
No problem.
Awesome. And I'm going to turn on some more lights just because it is getting dark.
Sure.
Half of my face, I'm going to start looking like Luke Skywalker when he's fighting Darth Vader, but without the cool Emperor cackle in the background.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Well, we will resume in a few moments then.
Awesome. Okay.
And we're back. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah. Good. Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Good? Awesome. Am I too loud or am I good?
Your gain is a little bit high. If there's any way you can adjust that, but yeah, okay. It's better than before.
Okay. I don't think I have anything added to my gain at all. Okay. But I can just push my mic like further away from me. Yeah. And maybe that helps. Yeah. Like, is that just better?
Yeah. Sometimes I just, as you're getting really, really excited, it's like, oh man, coming in a little bit hot. I used to do it all the time with when I was recording videos. It's just you adjust the mic for normal levels, but then you don't expect that you're going to get ramped up, and you do, and it's like so it's just having that built-in tolerance.
Yeah. When I did my test, it was so quiet in the test that I was like, oh gosh, like I need the mic right up here, like, or no one's gonna hear me. So anyway, sorry about that. Next time you can just let me know right away in the stream.
Okay. No, I sent him a message on Discord.
I saw that. That's why Emmanuel like tapped me on the shoulder. He was like trying to let me know that I'm like yelling in the mic, and so anyway, sorry.
Oh no, it's totally okay. I always fixed it in post because just but you can't exactly fix it in post right now.
Yeah, I don't really I don't even have like any filters. Like it's just coming directly through. I'm using StreamYard, and I never really used StreamYard before. I don't really know how. I can like check my audio settings and see if there's.
No.
There's like nothing to adjust.
Yeah, really, you need a Stream Deck for it, which is Just go,
but
Jenny,
2 seconds. I realize it's super dark behind me. I'm just gonna like turn the lights on behind me so that we're not totally in the dark.
Sounds good. Yes, I can solve it. I don't want to.
All right. Here we go. Here we go. After our nice little intermission.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks. Did some yoga, not yoga, but I did a couple. Yeah, I did a couple stretches. That's kind of why I'm like at a weird angle here because I'm actually leaning back in my chair, just to take some pressure off of my spine. But I popped it all the way down to like my hips. It feels so weird. Yeah.
Gosh, I'm sorry. That sounds miserable.
Yeah. It's fun. Yeah. But anyway, so let's deep dive into the social stuff. I think really starts to outline how men get that raw deal in society. And this is where the argument probably is going to get the most interesting and be the most apparent. Okay, so before the break, we started to get into pretty much how expectations on women have grown. But they haven't really had to do anything for those. Men go to war, men die in war, men die at work. But that's what traditionally is what's been expected of them. But now things are different, and we sort of take advantage of that fact. Is we still want guys to do this, but they don't really have an incentive anymore, and that's basically where I start going is that now, if I remember right, during the women's suffrage movement, there was a first round of voting, and I guess in our circles, this is fairly well known, is that women had the choice to join the vote, but they had to sign up for the fire brigade, and then they had to sign up for the draft, and they did not want to do that. So they opted out of it. And we actually, in the United States, so I'm a dual citizen for everyone who doesn't, I don't know if you knew that.
U.S. Canada.
Yeah, U.S. Right? Canadian. Yeah. So in America, basically they got omitted from the draft in the fire brigade, but they still got a vote. And right away we start to see women get to vote for laws that they don't have to die for. So you don't have an equivalent exchange there. Edward Elric would be very, very disappointed. And I think we saw the effects of that, in episode 2, right? It just creates a monster.
Yep, it does.
And
really abstracting from our animes there.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. But that even goes to support is that I think at that point, that's where women started getting turned into monsters, is during that emancipation movement or the suffrage movement, is men forced women to vote. Now, to be fair, a lot of women did want to vote, but we had to change the rules. So we gave women a responsibility without any accountability to it, at least much less than what men were given. So that's sort of where I started. It's like, you said they got turned into monsters. Is that, yes, they did, but men are still the monsters, and men are still treated like monsters. And we saw the effects of that with the Me Too movement, is the witch hunt without witches. So I guess a wizard hunt or a warlock hunt. Yeah, it was basically a warlock hunt. And everybody who got found out and sent to jail was a feminist. Thought that was hilarious. Yeah.
Well, men that,
I call them
spoke like feminists.
I call them cuttlefish. The cuttlefish will mimic female characteristics to get close to them. The smaller, kind of weaker ones, they just get close and then they pounce and just mate with them real quick.
Yes, like tree frogs.
Yeah, I like tree frogs. Yeah,
I had a friend tell me that one time. I think like in high school, grade 10 or something. And he was like, I told him I love tree frogs, and he was like, tree frogs are rapists. You shouldn't love them. And they like ruined tree frogs for me. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I'm sure consent and the tree frogs is a big point of contention. They probably dispute it in their courts or whatever tree frogs do. Owls are the only sophisticated ones. They have a parliament, at least.
Interesting.
A group of owls is called a parliament.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. I was like, okay, there's something here.
Oh, yeah, that was the joke. It's a parliament of owls and a murder of crows. I don't know if there's a rape of tree frogs. I don't think that's a thing.
Probably not. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of where I start, is that you say that women are the monsters, but I still think that men are treated, for the most part, like the monsters. And a lot of that is because we have these expectations that men will still protect us, men will die for us in our armies. I don't want women in the military. I don't want them in the draft. I like winning wars. I like living in a safe country. Yeah. So there's been numerous experiments throughout history of trying to have female soldiers, and a lot of that, it just goes really badly. Women, you guys are just smaller and weaker than the average man. It's like, on average, women are just are just weaker than the average man. You guys also have that crazy hormone cycle that I am not going to pretend to know anything about, but I do know that it does have fairly real side effects for a duration of time. That means that if you're in the middle of a battle and it hits, your stamina goes down, you're exhausted, you're cramping.
I think, though, that the biggest weakness of having women in the military is actually the effect it has on men.
Yes.
Like men feel the need to protect. They do. It's not something you can just whisk away from them. And they do find that when women are in the military, if you're captured and you're under torture, like all they have to do is threaten to torture the woman, and chances are the men break. And so it is like, whether women, even if you, and the thing is, okay, if you're a woman who is trying to argue that like women aren't physically weaker than men, you're an idiot. Like, sorry, but you are. Like, don't argue that. It's not going to help you.
Yeah, it's a lost cause.
Yeah, it's a lost cause. You're not going to win. But regardless of that, okay, even if you were like the buffest woman on the planet and could like hold your own in battle or whatever, the psychological effects of having a woman in the battlefield, you're the weak link. You are the weak link. Even if you're not physically the weak link, you are in the psychological impact it has on your team. Yeah. And so, I think it's retarded to argue that women should be in the military fighting alongside men. But again, I think this goes right back to we have no female heroes. We think that a female hero needs to be a man. And this goes right back to video games, actually, too. You know, it's funny. They argue that we need all these, like, female heroines in these video games. The fact is, women don't even play those video games. We talked about this already, you know? Women are on their phones. Women are playing Candy Crush. Like, I'm sorry. You can give them the best female protagonist in the world, and they're still probably not going to play your game if it's predominantly a shooter-based game.
Yeah.
Like, we're just not into those games. We're not. Sorry.
And I really think video games, violent video games especially, have become that sort of that aggressive outlet for most men that guys seem to have kind of innate into them, is that boys fight. In high school, like junior high, I got in a couple fist fights, which, you know, I guess it was uncommon for my school. You know, there wasn't a lot of fights at my school, which was primarily focused on academics. But I guess I was an anomaly in that case. But I don't know hardly any girls that ever got into a fist fight. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
although apparently, like, I've seen that, I guess statistically, like, you know, women aren't as violent, like, don't commit as many violent crimes. But apparently, like, when they do, they're really brutal about it. I don't know if you saw that, but I saw that somewhere. That's interesting.
Russia was testing out a all-female special forces unit, as like a small elite. Yeah, Russian women. Like, if there's anyone in the world that's going to have women of the stock that could be special forces, it's going to be Russia.
I wonder though if that has to do with, like, overcompensating. You know, it's like small dog syndrome, where it's like small dogs that are, like, barking all the time way louder. And you have women that are, like, when they commit violent acts, they're just brutal about it because they're overcompensating. I don't know.
I think you're onto something with that. I need more study. Okay. Point of need more study is that I think it's because women are the last line of defense. Typically, if women have to fight, it's generally life or death at that point. It's, if men go and die, you're still alive. So guys sort of have we're heroes for dying. But if women die, it usually means that so do children. Mm-hmm. And it's that sort of everything that you can do. I guess they call it, the idiom is mama bear syndrome. There's stories of, I was just reading one the other day where this little 5'4" mother had a car that was going to roll into traffic. So she dove in front of its wheels, crushed her own legs, but stopped the car. And there's all kinds of stories about that. It took this woman a year before she could walk again. And she said, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. So also, like, women lifting cars off of their kids because of the sheer amount of adrenaline. Sure. I think when women are put in a position that they need to actually fight, well, they kill you. And there's because they have to. And it almost seems genetic. Is maybe some of it's social, but if you're being attacked, it's because the guy is dead and your children are about to be eaten by a wolf, killed in their face. Interesting. Yeah.
So I think we've had one very consistent viewer this whole time, Hugo, in the chat.
Okay.
And he told me I was woman-splaining earlier, so sorry. Sorry for my woman-splaining.
Can we coin that yet? Because that would be hilarious. Woman-splaining.
Yeah.
What's with all the splaining? Okay. Yeah, so we kind of agree on that. We got to find something that we really start to separate on.
Well, I think if we go to the core... Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So we've completely stripped away the incentive and the reward of masculinity. And the term simp, I brought that one up, I think, before the stream. Like self-emasculating people. Is guys who are self-emasculating because they think that's what women want. But
okay, sure.
Yeah, we've completely degraded masculinity and masculine strength and called it toxic that guys don't even know what to do, so they just, go, oh man, this dress, I love it. And guys in dresses is gross, and it's always going to be gross. And we're not attracted to it. Feminists are not attracted to that. That was that article. Tim Pool just covered it. It was this intersectional feminist that said that she was not at all attracted to her boyfriend when he was wearing a dress. And it's like, of course you're not. That's not. I'm not attracted to me in a dress. I've seen, every guy has had my older sister used to dress me up, and I look at those pictures, I'm like, oh man, I wish I could burn all of these.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, and you're kind of right, is that we've really stripped away everything feminine, and just describing power or privilege as institutional position is a really bad way to go about it if we want to try to compare the genders. Now, this is where that social part comes in. Is the trade-off was, like you were talking, you clean the house, I'm gonna go work. And 8-hour days were not typical. 10, 12-hour days were more typical historically. And that's what, that was that nuclear family. That's what our grandparents grew up. My grandpa was a farmer, and that was typical. Is he go, break his back in the fields, growing his vegetables to sell at the market. And my grandmother would take care of the kids and cook. It's more efficient. But it's also partly biologically motivated, because I don't care what Planned Parenthood says. I can't give birth, and you will always have that superpower. I don't. I have the superpower of, I will be able to lift probably 60% more than you do. And I'm big and I'm strong. That's my superpower, and life is yours. And that's sort of our complementary burden that we're going to have to bear. And guys are not rewarded for bearing that burden. They're told that if they get success, it's because of their penis, not because of their work ethic.
Yep.
Or the color of their skin, which is, racist and sexist by definition.
Sure.
So they have nothing to aim at, and they're actually punished in society for succeeding because their achievements are completely degraded.
Yeah. I suppose in a way, men and women have a similar plight when it comes to feminism.
Yeah.
In the sense that, for us, we're robbed of the successes we do have because they're not masculine successes.
Right.
And, for the men, you're robbed of the successes you have because, it's not fair, if you will. But
you can log off Twitter and your life basically becomes normal.
Yeah. And this is where I think where it becomes most clear in my mind for why it hits women harder. Okay. Because don't get me wrong. Okay. Feminism has made it way harder for men to find a good woman, for men to find jobs, for men to feel purposeful. You have a ton of men that just feel like, well, what does it even matter anymore? You've been stripped of your purpose, and you've been stripped of it's not a meritocracy, right? You feel like you don't have anything to work towards because, well, if you have any success, it's attributed to your gender, not you as an individual. Okay. Also, though, sorry, I know I'm switching in the middle of a point, which is totally bad debate stuff, but I wanted to address one thing before I go in that direction, which was, okay, you mentioned housework, right? Women would stay at home with the kids, and men would go out and work in the fields. I think technology has massively shaken this up as well, where you have the reality is it doesn't take all day to feed everybody and clean the house anymore. We have vacuums, we have dishwashers, we have, all sorts of fancy kitchen appliances that make cooking way more easy. Actually, we have Costco. Sorry, you can run to Costco, pick up pre-made, spiced everything and put it all together, and it takes way less time than it used to. And, the reality is, okay, Turd Flinging Monkey made this point. I was like, okay, it's a fair point. He says, if you wanted to, you could, make a beautiful meal and clean the entire house in, 4 hours. Done. 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then, sure, maybe your man's gone for 8 hours. You have 8 hours to, keep the kids busy and do stuff like that. And you could also do all these things. Like we could accomplish all of it. He says women don't, you know, and women don't because we're stuck believing that it shouldn't be our job and that we're failing to be strong, independent women by filling that role.
Well, yeah, that's a really good point, is that we do have Costco, but I've had Costco meals and right? It's like, their fettuccine Alfredo is good, but it's never going to get better than a 6. And when we really look back at the food that our grandparents were eating, it was probably better food, right?
Maybe.
They boiled a lot of things. So
yeah,
maybe. I guess we have more access to spices and stuff. But I've recently you started bread making. Yeah. So my Instagram is just filled with different foods that I try to make. And bagels was my most recent one. And I can't go back to a bagel shop and buy a bagel. They suck. My bagels are better. And it took me 4 batches to make them better.
Yeah, so, but Josh, you're a foodie. Like, you're just, you are a foodie. I've heard you say ridiculous things about food that I'm like, yeah, Casey, this is why men are chefs. Like,
right. So men are chefs because I think there's something about guys just being obsessive. And, when you look at the social pyramid, men occupy the top and the bottom rungs. Women occupy the middle. Men occupy the highest CEO positions, and homelessness is like 80% men. So women are fairly cushioned, is that the lowest women are still not as low as the lowest men. And but that's part of what it takes to be at a really high performing position like that, is not like no life. And the trade-off is suicide, as we see, is that more guys kill themselves and each other, but men commit suicide at a far higher rate. It's like 83% of all suicides last year in North America were men. I just got some stats here. They're a little bit dated, 2008. Europe, men kill themselves at a 4-to-1 ratio. And a lot of CEOs, they die of heart disease, right? And heart disease is directly linked to stress and poor diet and lack of exercise. So women do seem to have that communal aspect down, which has been both a detriment to this sort of festering of feminism and groupthink of like that sister bond, whereas guys will just, say screw it and then just go get really good at something and get paid a ton of money because the market doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, you bring in that whole idea of like the community aspect, that women don't commit suicide at the rate that men do because they're not as isolated. That seems to be what your statement is implying.
I think that's part of it for sure. There's another anecdotal stat. This one, because it's hard to gather this data, but the paper noted that women attempt suicide or twice as likely to attempt suicide as men. So guys kill themselves, right? They're very, very effective at it.
That's the thing. Like you just hit the nail on the head with that as well, where it's like, women, we attempt suicide, but aren't as good as succeeding, because in a lot of ways, like an attempt of suicide is a cry for help. Whereas, men, it takes guts to actually kill yourself, like to fully really do the deed, and I think that it's absolutely true that men have the guts to do it. Like they do. And
sadly, so if I'm remembering my stats right, women kill themselves with pills. Guys kill themselves hanging guns and jumping. Where like if you were women just basically it's pills, and guys have very violent. So hanging guns and jumping makes up for the majority of all suicide. Like 67% of all gun violence in the United States is gun suicide, and mostly done by men. Now the follow-up to that was post 25. Men kill them. This one was trying to gauge suicidal thoughts. It seems like women under 25 have the majority of suicidal thoughts, and then after 25, men start, and up into old age, men dominate the suicidal thought demographic. So it's Yeah, I think, is that partially because you think women up until 25 are like pretty insecure about their looks and what they want to do, and that as they get older, they kind of settle out?
I don't know. I don't feel like I know enough on the topic to really talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that I just don't know enough about. You know, and the thing is, suicide is like it's a big topic in the like men's rights discussions, right? They bring that up all the time. And I think the big thing, here's the thing that is really tragic about a lot of these things is that there isn't as much help available for men. And this is something that it extends. It's not just suicide, but it's also like even domestic abuse and battering in these sorts of situations, right? Like I was watching a documentary the other day, and they were saying that like there's only one clinic in the entirety of the USA that is dedicated to supporting men. Most places won't even accept men as like victims of battering. Yeah.
They won't accept boys over 12 either.
Over 12. Wow.
Yeah, because they're considered part of the problem.
Wow.
Yeah, so prepubescent boys. Yeah, and okay, so yes, documentary. It is a great documentary if it's the one that I'm thinking of. It was one of the ones that sort of I watched very soon after I moved back to Edmonton.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the Red Pill, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, she's great. I've read a lot of her stuff. Yeah, so there's 2 in North America now, but there's 2,100 shelters for battered women. 2,100. As of 2016, 46% of all domestic assault was committed against men.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that's male on male domestic violence, which, I mean, the homosexual community isn't that big to really affect that stat, where I think most of it's just, women taking a frying pan to their guys. And there's been social experiments where you see girls slapping around guys in the middle of Central Park.
Yeah.
And you switch it around, and that a guy, as soon as he even moves towards the woman in an aggressive manner, 2 guys like jump him, and they're like, "Oh, it's a joke." And I think that really well characterizes, like, it's almost half. Now there is a strength difference here that I do think needs to be considered. Is if you slapped me as hard as you could, it's going to be a moderate annoyance, right? It's probably not going to actually hurt me that bad. Whereas if I did that, then it would do a lot of damage. And that does need to be accounted for, is that guys are very powerful. They're very, very strong. So it's not equivalent to say that 50-50, we need more men's shelters, or there needs to be more protection for men. Guys are like, guys need to man up about this, and we can't, it's not the same. So now women use objects, and so knives, frying pans, a whole lot more.
Of course. Yeah. But so here's the thing though.
Yeah.
Is this feminism, or is this again similar to what we were talking about like the divorce laws and stuff like this? Is it just that we have infrastructure focused around helping women in vulnerable situations because they, there used to be a bigger need for that? Like, is this feminism to blame, or is this something else? Like, I guess that's the thing. Like, here we're talking about who has it worse, men or women, with feminism, but I don't know that this one is directly correlated with feminism.
So
maybe
I think
you can.
Yeah, I think it's both.
Yeah.
So I think we probably should have really specifically defined feminism to begin with. Intersectional feminism creates a hierarchy of oppression. And if you are an oppressor or part of an oppressor group, you cannot be oppressed.
Sure.
Okay. So straight white men that are over 6 feet tall are the oppressors. Okay.
Yeah.
We get paid more. We get paid more historically. We're the ones who have dominated. All right. So if a straight white tall man is assaulted, it's really not that bad. And that's what the intersectional feminists really, really push, is that, yeah, but maybe he deserved it because he was in a skirt. And they use that logic. And Sargon did a great job of pointing out that hypocrisy when someone was going at him for this. He's like, when we say that, we always say, yeah, but what did he do? But if we have a domestic assault, a woman who's, a victim of domestic violence, we didn't say, what'd you do? And Chris Brown and Rihanna. Oprah did not sit down with Chris Brown and say, all right, so how did it get from, happily ever after to you breaking her arm? Like, what did she do? We don't ask those questions. Nope. Did I lose you?
Hey.
Sorry.
You back?
Lost you. Yeah, sorry. That was probably on my end.
Oh, I don't know. Both our cameras. Both of them were loading on my end. So I don't know what. Okay. I don't know what that was. Maybe it's a stream.
It's definitely not your internet. That's for sure.
It might be a StreamYard.
Oh.
You're having trouble connecting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a StreamYard thing. Sorry about that. Okay, you mentioned Chris Brown, Rihanna. Nobody's investigating why did you get to that point? Okay, wait. Yeah. You were the one who showed me that, right? Is the comedian sketch where he's pointing this out, where he's like,
yeah, it's like, I'm gonna bang all your friends. I sell more albums than you.
Exactly, where he's like, is there really never a reason to hit a woman?
Yeah, and he's like, there's great reasons to hit women. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really true, is that there are great reasons to hit a lot of people. It's not okay. You don't do it. Violence is rarely the solution in some cases, and usually it's against men.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There's times where I'll be freaking out about something and my brother will just slap me across the face and I'm like, I deserve that. Yep, I'm coming back to reality. But if a girl did that to me, if I was ever just freaking out, even you would totally be okay. You just slap me across the face and be like, yeah, okay, I need to get smarter. If I was to do that to you, completely different. It's not okay. Yeah. So in that way, men are still treated like monsters, and because of the intersectional hierarchy and supposed rape culture. And yet,
actually, I'm going to go back to that. Okay, if you were to slap me in the face, sort of thing, and that would not be okay. Okay, not be okay from whose? Okay, I know this is scary content for YouTube, but I will say, okay, when I was young, I used to read these books called the Mandy series. You probably have never heard of them, but anyway, they follow this one girl's adventure. She lives back in the 16. I don't know. Actually, I'm not good at time frames. I don't know when she lived, but back in the day when they wore pretty dresses and whatever. And she anyway has a friend of hers. She's maybe 13, 14, and they're going on adventures together. And there's one part in the story where she's freaking out and she's losing her cool and they're lost or whatever. And he just slaps her. He slaps her in the face and knocks some sense into her. And, and she accepts that. At first she's shocked and how dare you? Yeah. But then she thinks about it and she realizes, I'm totally freaking out. And
how dare you?
But,
you stole my childhood.
Okay, but that's the thing. Okay, she's freaking out and she acknowledges, I need to cool it. And I think we have this stereotype around violence against women and but the thing is, yes, and there is men don't always know their strength and they need to be careful about that. Yeah. But there is an element that is and should still be relatively acceptable when it is affectionate in a certain way. He's not slapping her in the face because he's angry with her. He's slapping her in the face to do her a favor. Hey, and he doesn't do it hard. It doesn't knock her to the ground. It's just one of those things of calm down. He could also have grabbed her, the shoulders, grabbed her by the shoulders and shaken her or something,
even that today is like,
exactly, right? Even that today is just like so horrifying. But the reality is, like, I don't know, like I grew up roughhousing with my sisters and with like even my male friends. And, you know, every once in a while you realize how much your male friend is holding back when like all of a sudden he does it a little bit too hard and you're like, wow, that hurt, you know? And then he's like, oh gosh, sorry. And like you realize, okay, maybe he used like 60% instead of 40% right there. And you feel the difference. And like, because so it is important. And I think there's a lot of times where like men don't know their strength or they don't restrain themselves, and it can get dangerous. And it's not, you know, and in general, you shouldn't hit anybody out of anger ever, whether you're a wife and you're angry and you're throwing a sponge, or I use that example because I did once throw a sponge at the wall when I was really mad at Emmanuel one time. I didn't throw it at him. I threw it at the wall next to him. Yeah. But anyway, I probably shouldn't be divulging these details on YouTube. But that being said, I think that we do huff and puff over this a little bit more than we should. I feel like society has lost rationality. And I don't know, maybe we can blame feminism for this somehow.
I would love to blame feminism for it somehow. Serve my purposes.
Yeah.
I think you outlined two really good points, is that there's clear inequality between the two, like based on physical traits. Yes. Men needing to control their strength. Absolutely. And as we move into more of an egalitarian view, is that men are virtually the same as women, which is what feminism is really. That's as far back as I could go, is they want men and women to be the same and treated the same and expected the same. Well, that actually takes away a really masculine virtue, which is controlling of strength. Now, I get pushed back on Emmanuel about this, but maybe you can. I'll see where this goes with you. Now, is there something very feminine about when you realize that your guy friends are only going about 60%? Like, does that sort of reinforce femininity? Knowing that a guy could crush you, but he chooses not to.
Okay. Does it reinforce femininity? I don't know if it reinforces femininity. Like, I don't. Yeah. I have to think about that phrasing, but it definitely does something. Like it. Okay. It is a very good feeling. Like, it's a very good realization, and what it does is it makes you feel secure in the situation, and it makes you feel, well, not only protected, right? It's like you do feel protected because you realize like he has the capability to be very violent, but he purposefully avoids ever making you feel like you were the target of that violence, right? Yeah. And even if it's like a situation where he has to grab you by the shoulders or he moves you aside or you're roughhousing or whatever, that comes across, you know, that is very, I think what it does too is the female, most female romance novels focus on this theme, actually, which is the taming of the beast. Okay, this is the core of it, like Beauty and the Beast narrative. And you know, you see this all the time with like all these novels where you've got like they're either a vampire or a pirate or a werewolf or like some kind of beast, and the Beauty, you know, tames it, and she just takes not this sparkly. Yes, just not sparkly. Let's hope not. And she takes this very violent creature and tames him to fuel his violence. Like, she gives purpose to his violence, right? Yeah. And now his violence is now repurposed to protecting her out of love for her, rather than just being a wild beast that attacks everything in sight. You know, that is the core feminine narrative. And so I think when you realize that the guy is withholding his strength to, you know, not hurt you, it does reinforce that feminine narrative. It's there's something in your brain that goes, success, you know, like, I am a successful female because I have been able to repurpose that, or to give purpose to his violence so that it's no longer turned towards me, you know, or maybe not no longer turned towards me, because it's not like you're the target of it, but you know, and this is too, okay, Anita Sarkeesian has one of her feminist frequency videos. She talks about these like tropes in video games against women, and she like rails on Mario for like Princess Peach, right? This whole damsel in distress narrative. But this is the thing too, okay? Sorry, but the damsel in distress narrative is an incredibly empowering narrative for the female role. You know, she argues that, oh, well, you're disempowered because you're not the hero of your story. But no, like the hero being successful female is like, imagine how valuable you would feel to be the motivation for a man to risk life and limb to rescue you. Like he's risking everything purely to be with you for your own safety and for your own good. Like, I'm sorry, but a woman is never more powerful than in this moment. This is why all the female novels and everything and all this always focus on these tropes. Like it's not just they're not trying to subvert femininity. This is the story that we all naturally gravitate towards. And this is why, again, I think feminism destroys women, because it tells us that that narrative is wrong and is disempowering. And so it leaves us floundering with like, well, what does it mean to be a successful woman? And what should we pursue? And what is the purpose if what we really want is equality and to be the hero?
And I've died to enough Goombas to have sympathy for that. Actually, not a lot of Goombas. I am terrible at Mario. It's like, it is one, I was playing it last year at Christmas, and my goodness, my brother was watching me play it. He's like, this is painful. And it is. I suck. I'm like top 1.5% in the world at Destiny, but I cannot beat freaking Mario. Yeah. Now,
yeah, to be honest, you suck at platformers. I'm not even good at platformers, and I can probably beat you.
Yeah, I find it so freaking frustrating too. It's like guys will just blow through it, just like, dang it.
Yeah.
Okay, so erodes that. But now imagine that you are Mario. You do go through everything. You fight Bowser, and then she slaps you, walks away with your toad, and takes half your coins.
Yes, sure.
So that's sort of women get that eroded, is that they can no longer be the damsel in distress that needs to be saved, because any kind of vulnerability is like, they must be Mario. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but where do guys go? We can't go be Peach. I mean, women don't pursue you when you're Peach. Women hate it when you're a weak man who, like, you don't even get to Peach. You never go through the hero's journey, and if you do, well, your wife's boyfriend thanks you for dropping. That's like, your Peach's boyfriend is going to thank Mario for dropping her off at his house on the weekends. Like, there's nowhere for guys to go after that, whereas women can choose to eat. If you just basically get off Twitter, stop hanging out with your university friends, and go to an Orthodox church, well, you're actually going to live a relatively normal life. I suppose same thing with guys, but there seems to be this pernicious narrative that, well, guys can't even do that because girls just get married to a strong guy. Whereas, I mean, I call them the lost boys. Now, they're sort of part of the MGTOWs. But the MGTOWs are fighting the wrong battle. It's like they sort of agree with the feminists because they don't want any responsibility. And the trade-off was with feminism, hey, we'll give you meaningless sex and you give us everything. And guys said, great. Like, this is going to be awesome for us. Well, and then basically, if you don't have a job, you're a failure. Men have always been success objects, but women are sex objects. So that's like a roll of the dice at birth, and that determines your value in the hierarchy, your sexual marketplace value, to go, super into that, what the MGTOWs talk about. But guys don't get that choice. We can't be boy toys, or else we're going to be dropping our wives off at her boyfriend's house. So we're just left with fewer options.
That's why nature takes its rolls its dice on men as well. Where you have you mentioned color blindness and these sorts of traits, where you do have definitely higher occurrences of these in men. And I think partly it is definitely, and I think, what is it, like only 16 or 18% of men have passed down their genes throughout history, whereas 80% of women have, right?
Yeah.
Like there's exactly this, you know. I think actually we've talked a little bit, not in the stream, but before, just about like, are women funny? And this idea, and we talked about it. And I think
they're not
like,
funny.
Evolutionarily, like, there is more pressure on men to. Nature takes its risks on men because you need to differentiate yourselves. You know, you're disposable, and you know, you die in wars and these sorts of things, and so you have to. I think this is where some of the obsessive nature of men comes through as well. It's actually to your benefit to be obsessive, because that's how you differentiate yourself. And if you pick the right thing to be obsessive about, then you become the best at that one thing, and you make yourself invaluable. Right?
And then you can father half of Europe like Genghis Khan.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Like Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great.
Yeah. Just shag your way across Europe.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so I think the ratio is 7 women to 1 man. Is, if you have any less than that in a starting population, there's not going to be enough genetic diversity, because women are, we call them a bottleneck point in production. Guys can have thousands of kids. Women, you're limited to, like, I don't know. Depends on when you start. In your early 20s, you could probably, maybe you can have like 10 kids. I think 12 is a lot, but still, it's a lot more risky for the women as well.
I don't remember. I don't know what the human record is for kids, but I think it's like 26 or something like that.
Yeah.
For one woman. Yeah. Which is amazing. But yeah. Okay. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. There's a question in the chat from Hugo. He asks, what do you think of sex robots? Which
sex robots.
It's an interesting question I think we should tackle, and I'll let you go first.
Yeah, definitely. This does come up. The MGTOWs are big fans of the sex robots. Because that's sort of how a lot of them view women. And I don't know if we haven't really gotten into this specific train of thought that would lead us into the sex robots. Is a lot of the time when I talk about this, I'm trying to build up a complementary narrative. Is women need men like a fish needs a bicycle? No, it turns out that like women need men like men need women, and that guys really do rely on women to civilize us. That way we don't, drag our seed across Europe like Genghis Khan. Specifically in that sort of heterosexual monogamous relationship with one man, one woman. I'm Protestant, you're Orthodox, and I really think that there's something fundamental to that, as far as God created man and woman to live in harmony with him in the garden. So we have this, we like our Trinitarian theology in the Protestants. I don't know if you guys go through that, but God, man, woman, and they need to be complete, just like God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit are in perfect unity with each other. So I think sex robots are a waste of time. Go for a hike, go get strong, go do pull-ups. Sex is, there's nothing more overrated than sex, and as underrated as a good bowel movement. So eat your fiber, eat lots of protein, and exercise.
I think that the root of sex robots, especially when it comes to its popularity in the MGTOW community, really definitely comes from this view that, that's what women are good for. Women are good for sexual gratification and babies, and that men are better at everything else. And so, in the MGTOW community, when you're men going your own way, you are naturally going to replace what you see as the only perceived need for women, which is the sex piece. And so, the sex robots is an attempt to distract yourself in that way so that you can kind of eliminate your need for women. I guess for me, though, I have a hard time seeing sex robots as different from pornography in general.
Totally.
And I know that there's like a lot of content out there on the negative effects of pornography, just on you as a person, your ability to cope with difficult situations, and well, be motivated and make something of yourself and all these sorts of things. And we don't really need to get into that necessarily. I mean, we could, but I think it's at this point, the research is pretty well established that there are a lot of negative psychological effects to pornography. And I'm not just going for like it dehumanizes women. Like there are so many worse things that go on psychologically for a man. Like they I think it's like men that have pornography too, like it has effects on your estrogen levels as well, you know, and it removes this they say people with porn addictions also struggle, like you turn to it for like comfort and when things get stressful and when things get difficult, and so it stunts your emotional ability to think through difficult situations and to process process anything, process hurts, process conflict, and so it just like stunts your emotional development. So anyway, I don't really see how sex robots are different from that. Like I think it's just like a step further in the porn, but I don't see that. Yeah, I can't imagine it has any different effects or that it's any better than all the rest of it.
The porn thing is really interesting. So erectile dysfunction is sort of plaguing men.
Okay.
And like
it's on the rise?
Actually, unironically.
No pun intended.
The pun is always intended, but we'd have to say it's on the not on the rise if it.
That's
but yes,
right.
Erectile dysfunction is something that even guys my age. So I'm 27. I think I'm 27. Yeah,
think, maybe.
Yeah, I need to count actually. I literally have forgotten how old I am. Guys my age will have erectile dysfunction, and you have companies like Blue Chew and other, I guess male enhancement products, and it just absolutely baffles my mind that this is needed at 27 when your T counts should be really, really high. So your testosterone should be high. Basically, the touch of a woman's hand who you are emotionally connected to should do the trick. But apparently that's not doing it for guys. And I think a lot of it has to do with, actually, most of it does have to do with exposure to pornography. And yes, it does increase your estrogen levels. But it's odd because sex increases your testosterone levels. So there seems to be something cut out that is really bad for men, especially.
Important.
Yeah, is that you need the relationship. But sex robots, MGTOWs, basically it's about democratizing the pussy. And it gives you a reward without having to work for it. And relationships are really, really hard work. And men have a raw deal right now, but I don't know if there's a better answer than just get good. Right?
Yeah. I think get good is it's a good response. And I think in a lot of ways, here's the thing. Feminism has turned women into miserable monsters.
Yep.
And to be honest, men need to be part of the solution.
Yes.
And I don't know that we're going to find our way out of this mess if all the good ones turn into MGTOWs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also say this recognizing that there is the incel community as well.
Sure.
It's tough because I've got a really good friend of mine that has had trouble getting a date. Now I'm 6'3", was at one point rather athletic. I look like I used to be athletic now. So I'm a little bit softer. I don't have the veins coming out of my abs anymore. So I did get really good genetics, and I'm rather articulate. I can remember poetry, and I'm not entirely socially deficient. Some guys are just awkward, and some guys aren't tall. Some guys don't have a lot of hair. Some guys just don't have a square jaw, and mine isn't that square, but the beard helps. So yeah, I did get really good genetics, So I don't know what it's like to just not be able to get a date. So the get good argument is really hard, and for them, I do think girls have crazy expectations. When we look at the OkCupid data, it shows that women often rate men as being below average. So yeah, it's like 40. Who are the ones objectifying, right? It's actually sorry, girls.
Women are way harsher. Way harsher on rating men. As far as appearance goes. However, there are also traits in a man that will, like, they're not physical traits, because this is the thing. Women are less visual than men. Yes. We are. And so the way to win a woman over is not entirely looks. And actually, depending on how you go about behaving, can actually make you significantly more or less attractive in a woman's eyes. And this can actually affect who she finds more attractive later on as well. And so, you know, you could be the most athletic, attractive jock, but be a Justin Trudeau. And it, you know,
if I trust Reddit, there's some weird things that women do when listening to his speeches.
Yeah, I don't want to go there. It's too upsetting for me.
Oh, absolutely. I accidentally ran across this, like reading a bunch of feminist articles, and she was talking about that. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so weird. I'm not reading this.
Yeah. But anyway, maybe Justin Trudeau is a bad example to use. But I just mean, like, you know, he's a total feminist and a total cuck and a total whatever. And, you know, like, he's just a weak male. Like, I guess that's the thing. Like, you can, it doesn't really matter how attractive you are if you act like a beta. Like, women catch on to that, you know. And I think this is the thing too, where you'll have a lot of actually, interestingly enough, you have all these like male feminists that get involved in these, you know, rape allegations or all this sort of stuff, where they like lose it and like beat their woman or whatever sort of stuff, you know. And I think that's part of it.
They're cuddlefishes.
Cuddlefishes?
They're disguising themselves.
So that they
that's right. You know, just sneak up and get a good rape in before they, because they don't actually have any values or ethics. The complete lack of personal integrity. So they just fake the feminist.
And this is why too, you know, like a lot of the MGTOWs, okay, when the guys go MGTOW and then they start like working out and they start doing things for themselves and they're more focused on their careers and their own values and living like a very selfish life, if you will. All of a sudden, you know, women start taking interest. And they're like, look, I just swore off women. Like, why are you interested in me now? You know, and that's the thing. Like, women want a man with drive, who's actually going to, like, knows what he wants. And, you know, the thing is, feminism tells you that, like, women want a sensitive guy, a guy who is going to support them in whatever their endeavors are, and who, like, oh, you know, you can be whatever you want to be, and I'll just support you, and yay. Women don't want a cheerleader. Cheerleader is what turns you into a monster. Women want a man who can tell them no when they should hear no. Women want a man who can be strong in these areas, but who also provides for them. Like, women want a man to tame, to know that he, you know, he is withholding his strength and repurposing his strength to create a home for her, but who is also not just gonna like let her do whatever she wants to do. Anyway.
And historically, I think that was my mistake. One of my biggest mistakes that sort of pushed me down that path was, like I said, this was before. I was talking about in high school, I just sort of accepted feminism to be modus operandi. I was like, oh yeah, women just want to be equal. That's fine. And equity is great. Women can do whatever they want. And I was dating she's a doctor now. Ugh. So just a really smart girl, but she didn't want kids and she wanted to work her career. And always sort of, if I ever stood up to her, she'd get really pissed. And we broke up because she was flirting with other guys. And I was like, I'm not okay with this. She's like, it's not flirting. I was like, yeah, you're climbing into his lap. Okay. Not okay with that. And I was the controlling one. So yeah, we split, and then so I figured that probably had maybe I should be a little bit more lenient. So I sort of adopted that. Okay, well, if she isn't happy, she'll just sort herself out, and I'll be there to support and encourage and be kind. And I thought that was a mistake. And looking back, is like the older I get, and the more people that I talk to that are happily married, like you, and even looking back in my relationships, on that past relationship, she always was attracted to me most when I said no. Where she would just, and really stuck to my guns. I think a friend of mine was telling me a story about how he took his girlfriend out for a very serious conversation and said, if we break up, I will be fine. You won't be. And I'm okay with that. And I really, really, really admire that. He was willing to lose the relationship constantly, and was just so grounded in his view of himself, his work ethic, and what he was doing, that straight up told her, I'm going to be fine. And yeah, I think that's sort of, I certainly didn't have that for a long time. I started to get some of that towards the end. I was never a pushover, but I just disengage as far as, all right, well, whatever, do what you want. Though there was times where guys would be hitting on her, and one guy asked me, he's like, aren't you worried about me hitting on her? I was like, give him a once over. I was like, no. And that is the kind of strength that I really think that's a great example of the kind of, just confidence that you have is, oh, I'm not worried. She's with me or she's not. And if she cheats on me, we're done. So yeah, it's fine. Whatever. But if she starts, flirt with other guys, you say, I'm not cool with this. Yeah. Instead of dropping her off at her boyfriend's place on the weekend and shaving with Gillette. So 2 things to avoid.
Sure. Hugo says in the chat, true, the one who loves the less is in control of the relationship. And I think...
No, I think it's entirely about control. And about controlling your strength. It's not about loving less. It's really about being grounded. Yeah. For me, that's not having my identity in the relationship. It's having my identity firmly planted in my faith. So having a good, solid faith life is really, really important to me. And then also being competent in what I do. It's not about loving less, because you have been one to point out that I feel more strongly than most. And the way that you used it was not in a positive sense. Now, learning to control that is, I really do feel things very, very deeply, but learning to just be in control of that and stoic. Like back to that stoic strength that's very, very masculine, knowing that I'm aware of my power, but I choose not to use it. It's different than loving less, I think. I know, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, if you want a happy marriage, you need to let the relationship influence you, very deeply influence you. And this is one thing that, Emmanuel and I actually had a terrible go at marriage counseling. Don't get me wrong, like the pastor and his wife that did it, they were lovely people. We just, like, the books and the content around that was like, gosh, I wish we had been Orthodox at that point, because David and Katrina are now having a great time at it. But we were still Protestant at the time, and it just, so much of it was on this, like, personality testing and stuff like that. The idea of going into marriage was like, oh, know your partner, know your differences, and accept your differences. And, it rubbed us the wrong way, because the thing is, Emmanuel and I, we had been together for 3 years going into marriage, and we had spent every day together for those 3 years. Like, the longest we have ever been apart since we started dating was 8 days. And a lot of people thought that was ridiculous. And, like, sure, in a lot of ways it is, but we really did shape our lives around each other. And so the thing is, by the time we were going through marriage counseling, we already knew each other very well. And the issue with telling a couple that's about to go into marriage to know each other's personality and accept the differences is that you don't actually know the differences well enough. You don't. There's something you discover now. Emmanuel and I have now been together for like 7 years or something since we started dating. We've been married for almost 5. And it's only now, after almost 5 years of marriage, that we're starting to become aware of what differences between us are not as changeable as we wish they were. But we got into marriage fully believing that we are very flexible human beings and that we learn to be a good partner for each other. And you need, I feel very strongly about this, that for a good marriage, you need to let the other influence you. So yes, as much as it's important to be like a well-rounded person when you get into a relationship, if you have this mentality, and this is where feminism guts relationships at its heart, is it tells women, you need to be a strong, independent woman that's not affected by the man around you. That you are just going to do your thing, and you know yourself, and you know what you want, and you're not going to be affected by man. That's crap. That is the biggest lie. Yeah. And you see this all the time. This is what we hated about the marriage counseling, is it was essentially just training us to like put each other in their nice little boxes of this is you, this is your personality, and I just need to accept your differences, and we're just going to go from there. Like, no, if you want a happy marriage, then your purpose should be to pursue that happy marriage. And sometimes, like, okay, I got to get really personal here. But for me, pursuing that happy marriage was realizing that I need to stop being a baby and get my act together and actually be willing to learn different things. I learned programming, okay? And I got into programming initially only because I knew it was important to Emmanuel that I understand a little bit of what he did so that he could come home after school or work and share what he was doing with me. And I wouldn't just be like, oh, cool, okay, and have no idea what he was talking about. He just wanted to share that with me. And I needed to swallow my pride. Because at first, when it first came up, and it came up a few times in discussions, it was hard for me to hear. Like, at first I was like, oh, like, what, I'm not good enough? Like, I don't fill your needs? And, after it came up several times, realizing, no, actually, sorry, princess, you're not going to just fill your man's needs 100% from the start. And that's normal because you have to build towards that. And I think so many people get into relationships and they don't really get to know each other, and they don't really let the other person influence them because they're still hanging on to this notion of identity. Like, you have to have it all together and you have to everything. Like, and I realize that this in some ways is a very Christian concept of this idea. And what I mean by that is, okay, there are plenty of Christians that get divorced. Plenty. But Emmanuel's mom says this all the time. She says, I don't believe in divorce. Murder maybe, but divorce never. And
you're leaving this marriage over my dead body.
Sure. It is essentially this idea that like it is a lifetime commitment. And in the Orthodox Church, marriage is a sacrament. Like it's up there with like taking communion and with becoming a monk. Like it is seen as a vow before God, like, and it's seen as essential to your salvation and sanctification. Like this is, and I realize, like, I apologize to the non-Christians in the watching this. It's a lot of technical lingo, religious lingo, but at the core of it is this understanding of marriage as like, this isn't just something you hop into and it meets your needs and then you hop out of whenever it's not filling your needs. Like, no, this is the idea that this is a lifelong commitment for the sake of your soul and for the like forging through fire of you as a human. Like, it is a very, very difficult process. And it is really heartbreaking to discover how you don't meet your partner's needs when your entire purpose is to be the best partner to them that you can be, the best spouse that you can be. So this is why I say, like, no, like you have to kind of abandon this concept of identity with reckless abandon when you get married in a lot of ways, because you will be affected by your partner. And if you are pursuing a happy marriage, you need to be affected by your partner. You need to be able to hear words, hey, you're not meeting my needs in XYZ, and you need to be able to make the calculation of, do they need to change or do I need to change, and how, in order to meet this need. And the reality is, this is where the struggles come in marriage, is when you start to realize there are fundamental differences between you and you can't meet their needs as easily as you wish you could. And, marriage, you don't really realize how selfish a human being you really are till you get married. And then, to even be able to see it from... Sorry, you're going to say?
Oh, am I lagging?
You might be lagging a little bit. There might be a bit of a delay.
Smoke.
Fire.
Yeah.
Oh, you're totally lagging.
Delay. Hold on, I'll see if I...
Rats. Okay.
Yeah, I'll see if I can fix it.
All right.
Okay, 1 second. I need to check the router. Sorry. I'll be right back.
All right. I'll just entertain our viewers.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. While Josh is fixing his lag, I guess ask me anything in the chat, and I will respond. Probably shouldn't just sit here in silence like a retard, but I don't really know what to do. See, this is the thing that's difficult about live streaming. Is like, it's fine when there's somebody else with you and you're like chatting about it, but I've done a few streams, especially when we're testing entropy, where I'm just like talking to the camera. Monologuing is hard. It's really hard. You're just like looking at a camera and you're trying to like talk to the camera like it's your friend or like it's a real person. And I don't know, like I really have a lot of respect for streamers that do this. Okay, great. Hugo, thank you for your question. Thank you for rescuing me with a question. Hugo asks, are you American or Canadian? I'm Canadian. Yeah, fully Canadian. Both parents are Canadian. What country would you live in besides Canada? India, actually. India is pretty high on the list. I would also live in Australia. David says Georgia. I don't know if I'd live in Georgia. Never been. But India is very high on the list. Honestly, I don't know why I'm still in Canada. It's just way too cold here. I grew up in Africa, so I was not built for this climate. And I really don't enjoy being cold. And so honestly, I would probably live anywhere that's warmer than here. But for now, we are here. Turns out when you start a company, it kind of forces you to stay in that country for a little while. But maybe one day when things settle down with entropy a little bit, we will move the company to India. All right. Hey, Josh.
Smoke.
Fire.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Is that better?
Yes, that is better. I was just entertaining Hugo and Zach with my answers to their questions. Oh, Zach says we're in Africa. Okay. I was telling him I grew up in Africa. Cameroon, actually, Zach.
Nice.
But okay, so where were we, Josh?
Yeah. So, as far as how marriage molds you, so I have a lot of egalitarian friends, and we've sort of had these I've had these conversations with Emmanuel quite a bit. Egalitarian versus complementarian, and I have a lot of Protestant egalitarian friends.
Oh yeah, most of them probably are. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there's this big conference at my school every year. It's super left wing, and it was interesting because one of my friends had just gotten married, and she was just livid about one of the speakers, and she ranted for like 5 minutes, just so pissed about his identity politics, and just like what a cock this guy was, and basically at the end she's like, it was good to get that all out, man. I keep on using these phrases, and my husband uses those phrases, and I'm worried that I'm just turning into him. And I just laughed. It was like, we'll call her Elizabeth. Elizabeth. I think that it's amazing that you have allowed your husband to reach into the depths of your soul, that it even changes how you speak. And as like her mannerism is that she loves her husband and invests in that relationship so much that even her mannerisms are changing as a result of him. That's cool. And that really backs up what you're saying about, I guess we call a covenant is like a sacrament, but different for it's our equivalent in the Pentecostal circles. You would know this because yeah.
It's not really. I don't think Protestants really have the equivalent quite the same way, but close enough.
No, we do not. Yeah, that's the best way to frame it. The closest that I can get to. Yeah, marriage is not just a paper that you sign to get half your stuff taken away. It's a lot deeper than that in the religious circles. And quite honestly, like 86% of all Protestant marriages do not end in divorce. Yes, it is better than the rest of the population. That's sort of a misconception. It's sort of a difference between people who actually attend church and people who identify as evangelical or Protestant that do not attend church are basically the same as the rest of the population. But people who report attending church on a weekly basis, their divorce rates are way lower.
Way lower. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And and the thing is too, there's this thing. I used to actually be more critical of this than I feel I am now. And this is like, I think in Christian circles too, you will have and kind of this view of marriage as like, oh, a marriage is hard and it's going to suck. And so, they will just get married as soon as they're in a relationship. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, you don't even like each other. Why are you getting married? But it's like, well, they're dating and it works, or maybe it doesn't really work, but they have this view that, oh, well, marriage is hard and you're going to hate the person half the time anyway. So let's just get married because marriage is for the purpose of like suffering through for the sake of God's grace, right? Okay, I'm sure you've met somebody that views it this way.
Yeah,
a lot of my...
It's so weird.
What? Sorry.
I have a bunch of friends with great... I count you as one of my friends, and a lot of my friends have great relationships. So I don't actually have... I have proximity exposure to these people, but none of them are in my life.
I see.
So anyway,
definitely encountered a lot of people with that view, and it at first, like, it broke my heart in a lot of ways, where it's like, look, like, even when you really like each other, like, even when like your personalities are compatible and you really like the person you're married to, marriage has a lot of hardships. And like, the goal of marriage is definitely to get to a place where the conflict is no longer internal between the two of you, and conflict comes from outside. It's the outside world that brings conflict that then you deal with, right? There are difficulties. You have a child with a serious disability, or illness, or these sorts of things, struggles with in-laws, finances, all sorts of other things. There are a lot of other stresses in marriage that don't need to come from your own internal conflict. And so I feel bad for these people that, I think it's great that they view marriage as like one of these things that's like divorce doesn't exist in their view at all. It's not ever an option. If you're miserable, you're miserable, and you like work through the misery with the grace of God. I think that that's a better way of viewing marriage than seeing it as like a selfish contract. But at the same time, like, I do think there is an element to wisdom in choosing your partner as well. Like, know who you're marrying. Like, you hear some of these stories of these horrible divorces, and like, I actually already have friends. I'm young and I already have friends that are divorced. And you look at that situation and you're like, just know who you're marrying. And, like Emmanuel and I, we dated for 3 years before getting married. And that was, that felt like forever. But at the same time, when we got into marriage, people always ask us this, like, oh, well, what was your biggest surprise in marriage and this kind of stuff. And well, you know, it wasn't a lot of personality surprise. You know, there are a few expectations that you know, needed to be sorted out. But that's the thing. Like, it shouldn't be. You shouldn't be shocked. Like, you shouldn't be shell shocked. You know, there's a lot of pastors have horrible marriages, and then they write marriage books on like how to fix your totally horrible broken marriage. And this is why we also had a really hard time with premarital, because like we're reading all these books that you're like, listen, you hardly knew each other, and then you got married, and then you got to know each other and realized, gosh, I don't even like this person. You know, it's like, I don't even think they're funny. I don't even like how they see the world. And now you're, you know, married. And so, yeah, anyway, I think there does need to be a lot of like wisdom and thought that goes into it too. And I think the media doesn't help with this, where we like crop marriage up to be this like, oh, the ultimate romantic thing, you know, you propose and it's on a whim and it's so fantastic. And no, you know, like, that's nice. But this is the thing too. If she is surprised by your proposal, you probably shouldn't be. It's too soon. You know, like, there's this idea that, oh, the proposal, you know, the guy needs to try so hard to make it a surprise and all this stuff. And I agree that it's fun if there's like a surprise to how you do it. But she should have no doubt in your mind that it's coming. Like, all the happy, good couples knew it was coming and had already talked about it way before the ring ever showed up. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Totally. But, well, we're on to marriage and like this sort of stuff. I'm going to go back to the main topic of this stream, which is who is more negatively affected by feminism, men and women. And because I think the core biggest punchline to my argument for why women are more affected by feminism, like in a negative way, actually is right here in the core of marriage. In your ideal scenario. And just tell me if like I'm starting to yell in the mic again. I don't want to do that. But okay. In your ideal scenario, where let's say, okay, yes, feminism makes it harder to find a job, find a good woman, find, you know, a woman who wants traditional values in a family and all this stuff. But let's say everything aligns and you're like, the ideal scenario, man has a good job, woman wants a family, has traditional values, they get married and they're really happy, okay? Emmanuel and I scenarios, okay? Okay. Here's where feminism is ruining my life, okay? And it comes to, I'm indoctrinated in so many ways to feel like the victim in situations where I'm obviously not the victim, okay? You know, I'm a female programmer. I work in an office full of guys. You know, there are a ton of scenarios where I could feel like the victim, okay? There could be a scenario where, let's say, you know, David's like, gosh, Rachel, thanks for creating that bug. You know, let's say I push a fix that breaks something else, which is a very regular occurrence when you're pushing fixes. But anyway, I could feel like,
oh, like thing. I've seen Emmanuel look at your toes.
My toes? What?
Yeah, the harassment thing. I've seen Emmanuel look at your toes.
That's right. You know, exactly. Like, there are so many ways that you can interpret these things, you know, and and it's just right. That's right. You know, the guy in the office has a foot fetish and he looks at your foot wrong, and all of a sudden it's oppression.
Yeah.
But I mean, like,
exactly.
But what I mean is, like in the scenario, let's say just in a work scenario where like my code is under scrutiny, let's say, it is so easy for me to automatically go to, oh, well, you know, they just think I'm a bad programmer because I'm a woman, you know, or like these kind of thoughts. And like, let me paint a picture for you to like capture this, the like horrible suffering that everyone goes through when you have a mentality like this. Okay, let's picture like normal roommate scenario. Okay, let's say it's the same gender roommate scenario, 2 guys living together. Okay, and like you're just friends, and you know, you do your own things, you usually cook for yourselves or whatever. Okay, and say all of a sudden you start to get hungry, and you're like, okay, like and you know, we all have those days where you just don't feel like doing anything, where it's like, you know, you're hungry, but you're like, ugh, do I have to do anything? And so you just like put it off until your standards are low enough that you just eat a piece of toast. Like, I don't know. You're a bit of a foodie, so maybe you can't relate. But let's picture this.
I am guilty of that, Sid.
Sure, so picture this scenario.
Sourdough bread. I'll never eat plain white Wonder Bread. Cobs or bust. But okay.
Okay. But many a lesser human being would stoop to those levels. But anyway, so picture this scenario. Okay, you have two guys living together, and you're one of the guys. You start to get hungry, and you have options. Okay, you're feeling lazy, you don't want to do anything. You can either suck it up and make yourself some food, or not do anything and suffer the consequences of being hungry. But now, let's say you suddenly start to look over to your roommate, and there he is playing his video game, and you start to feel like, well, I make food for him all the time. Why does he have to be all carefree playing his game right now while I'm hungry? I always put in the work as a good roommate. I'm so considerate to him all the time. Why doesn't he take one for the team and be considerate and cook me something too? Surely he must be hungry right now. Okay?
So, David, now you know how she really feels.
No. I don't know if you're going to comment. But I'm just saying, okay, here's a scenario where, and two guys in that roommate situation, an outsider would look at that and go, man, get control of your life. What do you, that's a stupid attitude. Just, make yourself some food or don't. But, who cares what your roommate's doing? Okay? Now, put that into a marriage.
In an all-guys situation. Okay.
Yeah, in an all-guys situation, you look at that and you're like, what the hell's wrong with you? Get over yourself. And just, either make yourself some food or not. But your roommate, it shouldn't matter what he's doing. Okay? Put that in a marriage situation. Now you have a man and a woman. And you can see how that happens all the time. Where the woman feels like, oh, I'm always the one cooking and I'm always the one whatever, can't I just have a break? And I know that I'm definitely guilty of feeling that way, especially in the early phases of the company where it was just Emmanuel, David, and I, and here we are coding all day, and I would have to stop what I was doing to feed everybody or we just wouldn't eat. And I remember so many times just feeling like how, it's so unfair that as the woman, I have to fill this role. And I rejected it and I didn't want that role and I really pushed back on it. And I don't know, well, I'd love to say I don't know where that mentality came from, but I think it just comes from growing up in this very feminist culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, was that face you're yelling in the mic,
It's just
Rachel?
sort of assumed. No, that was me agreeing with you. It was, it's just assumed that it's modus operandi, right? Feminism, good, right? It's something that we grew up with, that we're just assumed as, I guess, what would be your name for it? It's like part of the liturgy of our society.
Sure, we can say that, I guess. But yeah, this is the thing.
Yeah.
This is the reality of feminism for women. And and I guess you could even see my case is the ideal case. Okay, it's the ideal case where I'm happily married. I can't wait to have kids. I really have the traditional values. Emmanuel would be more than happy to have me stay at home with the kids, and we would have a very traditional life. Yes, I may be, co-founder of a company with him right now, but the thing is, I would throw that all away to be a mother at any time. And so it is this ideal situation where we're very happily married and we really enjoy each other. We have a great time. We want to raise a family. Emmanuel wants 6 kids, so I better start pumping them out. So, right. But this is the thing.
You, Eric, and Ken, man, you guys are gonna have it covered. I might just join the MGTOWs because, man, 18, man, I will coach your baseball team of the 3 family baseball team.
There you go. Yeah. You can coach our family baseball team. But that's the thing. Okay, here's the ideal scenario, and yet I bring misery into my own life every moment of every day. And that's just the thing where I know, I know the feminist narrative is crap and I know it's ruining my life. And yet it is a struggle to find the feminine role again. What does that look like? And part of it, there is a lot of humility involved in that process, where I need to realize too that, like, okay, in our team, okay, even though I'm capable programmer, I've built a lot of the software and all this stuff, the roles that I am most capable of filling are a lot of like administrative, customer service, and these sorts of things. And I, month after month, I'm the one who pays everybody. I'm the one who processes. I'm the one who handles the finances of the company. And the thing is, it's not like we sat down and we were like, Rachel, you're going to do this. David, you're going to do this. In fact, when we started, we were very ideological about it. Like, we didn't believe in division of labor. It was very much we want each and every one of the founders to be able to do any role at any time, everywhere. If you're programming on the front end and the back end, all of it. You should be able to be aware of what's going on in the code at all times, aware of what's going on in the company. And you should be able to do both customer service and the programming and the finances and the administration and the taxes and all the everything. Okay, that's just not how things played out in real life. The reality was we would have a deadline for some administrative task where we needed to, send verification for something or pay our taxes and all this stuff. And I would find myself filling that role. I'd stress about it. I'd want to be doing it. And the guys would be a bit more relaxed about it. Like, can't it just take care of itself? I'm coding over here. Whereas I couldn't just have that attitude. Right. I couldn't, and the reality is I could have tried and I could have just been like, oh, forget it. And then maybe it wouldn't have gotten done, or maybe one of the guys would have stepped up and done it last minute. But the fact that it bothered me and that I felt pushed towards that meant that I was filling these roles. And even cooking lunch, it was exactly one of those things too, where the guys could just ignore it, whereas I couldn't. Like, I was like, we are failing if we don't have lunch. So, if we don't have lunch now, we'll tank by 3 p.m. and then productivity will be shot. And I just found myself naturally filling these roles. And it is a more feminine role that I was filling, but I resisted it. I felt like I was being unproductive every time I would do customer service or like cook for everybody, even though that was a role that really needed to be filled. And I think this is the problem. Yeah. This is the key problem for why feminism is ruining women's lives, is that we are programmed to be miserable in every situation we encounter, even in the ideal.
Right.
And there you have it.
Okay. I'm going to support your point for a second. What's your sister's birthday?
My sister's birthday? Which one?
Yeah. Any of them.
Okay. Natalie's July 5th. Katrina is March 24th. Yeah.
Okay. Ask Emmanuel what his brother's birthday is.
Emmanuel, Josh wants me to ask you what Nathaniel's birthday is.
August 1st.
He knows it, but I know the point. He says August.
Okay. 1st. Right.
Sure.
Or ask Emmanuel when his mother's birthday is.
When's your mom's birthday? He doesn't remember. Yeah.
Rachel, when's your mom's birthday?
My mom's birthday is, okay, no, that's my dad. My dad's November 16th. My mom's is. Why is that? Our dad's birthdays are like more. Emmanuel says he remembers his dad's birthday better.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's terrible. Guys, let's not put this on the internet.
Okay.
Anyway, I know the point you're trying to make. You're trying to make the point that women remember birthdays and these sorts of things better. And that's absolutely true. Okay. I do sort our agenda out as well.
Yeah.
The reality is, if somebody wants to get in touch with us, the company, they're better off emailing me than, anybody else. And
right.
I'm the one who arranges our dinner dates, and, we see friends because I make it happen in a lot of ways. Yes. Yes, that's true.
And girls have been women have been doing that. They've been the backbone of civilization for a long time, handling, making sure everything ran on time. And I think that's why they're having such success in the accounting field, is that, that's basically what accountants do. They sort the beans, they make sure that the colors aren't poisonous, and they remember dates. All right. Taxes. I'm in accounting, and I can't tell you what date. I have to look it up every year. It's like, when are my taxes due? Okay, August 31st, or no, March 31st. It's just bad. I have to look. I can't remember when my registration is due, when I have to renew my driver's license. All of this exists in my phone. Okay, I have to put it in there, or else I'm not going to remember. So are you? I just want to dig into your point a little bit. Is basically it's like feminism has really eroded the gratification that you would have gotten from completing these tasks.
Yes, absolutely has. You know, these are tasks that actually I enjoy doing, but there's an extra stress to them now because I feel like I'm not, you know, filling that expectation, like I'm a failure for doing it. Yet the thing is too, like, it's not like it goes unappreciated. And this is the thing. I've actually had to relearn a value for some of these things, a value for housework and a value for cooking through Emmanuel and David's eyes. When I cook for them, without fail, they thank me every single time, even if the meal was trash. Yeah. Because they appreciate it and they recognize that, well, they weren't cooking for themselves. You know, they appreciate the effort. They appreciate the sacrifice. I chose to take time out of my day to cook, not only for myself, but for them as well. And, you know, when they get sick, and I do, like, I have a medical cabinet. I have a place in our home that's dedicated to this, all these like pills and remedies that I've collected over time, you know, and so that whenever anybody gets sick, I can help with that. And it's just one of these things that, like, I do them without even realizing that I do them. And I do them as like of course this is important. And they don't. And maybe they don't value it the same way, but they sure appreciate and value it when they're sick or when they're hungry or when these things, you know, and the reality is, like, the feminine role really is to kind of keep all the balls in the air and to create an environment in which a man can thrive. And so, yes, maybe men are better chefs, but women more consistently feed them. And what is more important when you are working 8 hours a day, getting fed consistently, or having one great meal every month or so? Okay,
clearly
maybe not every
making
month.
Sure that my souffle does not collapse.
Clearly, right? But that's the thing. Like, there are so many practical elements to life that it's the difference between, well, it's a quality of life thing. And you know, we could as a company just order pizza all the time. Like, we could do that every lunch and just order in, and it would be very economically irresponsible. And we probably all get fat.
Who do you think does most of the cooking in Gordon Ramsay's house?
Probably his wife.
Yeah. Sure, he's a chef at his restaurant, or and chefs don't even do most of the cooking, right? A celebrity, I think that the celebrity chefs do not cook very much. They come up with the dishes, they train their staff on how to cook them, and then they manage before it goes out the door.
Exactly.
Okay.
But there are a lot of female chef assistants.
Yeah, there is. And if you watch, I don't know, I watch the Ramsay, like the Ramsay Eats, I think that's what it's called.
Sure.
Basically, he tours around to small restaurants and just like little family restaurants. And guess what? Husband is running the business, more often the maitre d', and his wife is in the back doing most of the cooking. Okay. He probably is the one who comes up with the menu, comes up with the dishes, sure. But so many times, and maybe the program was looking for more of that diversity, so they found more female chefs. But that was just a trend that I noticed. It was like, and women can cook. I mean, yes, women can cook.
Yes, but the question isn't whether we can or not. The question is, who feeds? Who gets people fed more consistently?
Who are the caretakers? And this is one of those ways where, you know, if I was married to a girl who was a doctor, and we had to choose, and I'd say I wasn't making as much money as her, I would be hesitant, but I would somewhat be okay with being a stay-at-home dad. I really like to cook, but I would always have a side gig going on. I would expand my ice cream business to have a summer thing. That way I could have my kids with me. But it's like I'm actually okay cooking for people. I like to cook at your house, right? It's, to feed you guys as a way of thanking you for having me over. I like what I do in the kitchen, but it's not the same. I do it, but even the celebrity chefs, it's a way of performing well at their craft. It's not a caretaking thing.
It's not an every, you're not going to do that 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes me 8 hours to make bagels. Like, that is totally unsustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a really interesting point. And that is totally different than all the feminist narratives that I had studied going into this, is that every single I was trying to really get to the heart of like, what is feminism? Because I have no clue. Is like allowing women to be feminine and caretakers. Yeah,
well, I mean, they shot motherhood in the face. That's the big one that a lot of people talk about. And the thing is too, like, I can't tell you how many female friends I have that are embarrassed to say that all they want to do is be mothers and housewives, because that is associated with being a lazy failure or member of your gender now. Like it, and sure, in a lot of ways, there is room for laziness. We do have so many tools at our disposal to make work easier, right? Like I pointed out before, we have a lot of technology that make cleaning and cooking and all these chores that used to keep women busy at home all day long. Now, it goes a lot faster. Yes. So there is potential for maybe lazing around the house more, but that's not what happens necessarily in practice. I think the MGTOWs kind of have this view that like, when, you get a woman pregnant and then she's just lazy and sits around at home all the time. First of all, apparently pregnancy sucks. Well, yeah. But also, I think that there are a lot of women that run little side businesses from home, or they're doing a lot of like arts and crafts and mending and these sorts of things that mending is kind of a outdated concept now, I guess. But the thing is too, like, it's really big, like thrifting and this sort of stuff is like really coming big right now. You actually see a lot of YouTube channels on that. And, a lot of different ways of scrimping and saving, and also like markets. Okay. Historically, men may have been the merchants going out and like gathering the goods and going on the risky journeys. But women have historically and still do today control the buying and selling in large amounts. It's not
6%.
Yeah. Yeah. And in general too, women are better financial managers as well. And so a lot of times you may be staying home, but there's a ton of people I've seen women that actually they actually crunch the numbers. Like after they have their first kid, they have to decide between them and their husband, like whether or not somebody's going to stay home with the kids, who it's going to be, and all this sort of stuff. And they crunch all the numbers and they realize that, wow, it is actually more economical for the woman to stay home with the kids than it is for them to just pay for childcare and transportation and for them both to go to work. And so like it's not just.
I love this point.
Sorry, there's still a bit of a delay, but
you go
still. Ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Smoke.
Fire.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Still a delay.
So I really like this point. Yeah. So someone I know and who's been really open with me about her some of the like her marriage story. She's in her mid-50s now, and just like an absolutely lovely person, like really, really great person. Or 40s. Can't believe I messed that up. Yeah, but so she has a BCom degree and is certified for Canadian securities. So the typical finance route, had a job at a big bank, and her husband was an engineer. So when they had their first kid, she crunched the numbers and found out that it was a 10% loss for her to stay home with her kids. Okay, be a full-time mom and manage everything. But that is just crunching straight numbers. And the feminists might eventually decide that they want to try to do math. I don't know. Most of them have humanities degrees, so I don't know how they are with the takeaways. I'm not good with the takeaways. I can't imagine a humanities student would be good at the take. Okay, maybe I shouldn't assume that they're going to be doing the math. So just in case there's a feminist in the comments section that wants to call me out on my takeaways. So it's about a 10% loss on your first kid. What that doesn't factor in is something really important in economics. It's called opportunity cost. And you obviously know what this is. So women take a 5% hit to their total earnings in their lifetime for every child. Men get an 11% raise once they have kids. So on average. So it's completely offset in the favor. So the average is 2.2 kids. So it's a 10% loss for women, but it's an 11% gain for men, which means that you actually make more money when you're a father. Now, what it doesn't factor in is the opportunity cost. And if women stay home with the children instead of putting them into daycare and trying to do the work thing, if they even just have a side gig as they're home with their kids and they take care of the house, they manage the finances, and they basically run support for their husbands will get promoted because they take off the stress.
Yeah. And
it'll allow their husbands to work harder.
Is huge.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the thing, like you talk about quality of life and you think of like, if you're a man, you're working 8 hours a day and you come home, okay, you have the choice to come home to children who haven't seen either of you all day, who are getting more bonded with the childcare worker than they are with you. And to come back
goodness
to
knows how they're being raised.
Yeah, a scramble for dinner because you and your wife are both getting home at the same time. Who makes dinner? Who manages this? And you barely have time as a family, you know, whereas you can come home to dinner and your wife and kids who are excited to see you. And, you know, these sorts of things, like it really does have psychological effects, does improve work, but also, you know, opportunity costs. I'm glad you bring it up because it's huge. You know, in economics, actually, most of the time in our classes, like most of our classes focused on opportunity costs is like a huge piece. For those in the audience who don't know, my bachelor's degree is in economics. But anyway, and also like there's a potential of multiple kids as well. The woman may keep her career for the one kid, but you know, depending on how many kids you have, like this keeps adding up and you take more time off work. Yeah, it's just a mess. Also, the idea of working while pregnant, like the more I learn about pregnancy, now maybe I'll get pregnant and I'll have a great experience, but the more I learn about pregnancy, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do you hold down a job while you're pregnant? Like I don't even know. Like, you know, the first trimester, most women spend half their time, you know, with their face in the toilet. I don't know how you like have a job, let alone like a nursing job or something like that. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's funny. My sister's a nurse and she worked until 8 months with Lincoln. It's hard. Like there's no doubting that it's hard, but it's possible. You just, you know, this is sort of that, I don't know, with guys, it's a problem as well, but they call it, like the pussification of men, but basically tolerating weakness in men. But when we look historically, women would just like, you know, hop off the trail, go give birth, sort themselves out, bundle that kid back up, and then hop back on the horse. Like that's how it was. So it's not that it's, you're going to spend like the first trimester with your face buried in the toilet, but yes, you will. It's just, I think part of that, the burden of motherhood is sort of this expectation. Expectations are pretty low. Like there's a lot that you're capable of. Now, again, I'm saying this, I'm not a woman. I'm not going to have to go through that.
You know, I think it's good that you say it. Like, you know, I do think that we do fuss over this way too much. I actually watch, I watch a channel that I really love, and it's I don't know if you know Blonde in the Belly of the Beast, Rebecca Blonde. She's she does the show with Matt Christensen. Well, anyway, she started a show now with this other girl, Robin. What?
I no e-girls is my rule.
Oh, no e-girls. She's not really an e-girl, like just mostly a politics kind of show. Okay. But anyway, she started a show with Robin, and it's called Motherland, and it's essentially they're both pregnant and they're both like going through this, and they're like chatting over it, and they said like okay, here they are like fussing over like prenatal vitamins, like what do you take? And they're supplementing with all these things, and they're like freaking out over all these things. And they say like both their mothers are like, you millennials have way too much time on your hands. You know, they're just saying like, you know, like you're fussing over all this pregnancy and like doing all this research and freaking out over the process. And like, yes, pregnancy is a very exciting, intense process. But I think it's true that there's something maybe about our culture now where we, I don't know. I definitely have the tendency of over-researching things and of being very high-strung about everything.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, you know, it's true. I think we do need to kind of relax and recognize as well that, like, look, women have been having babies forever. It's probably fine.
Well, it's really funny. I don't know if I should tell the story. I'm just going to risk it.
Do it.
I have a friend of mine that we were camping one time, and I thought I smelled a propane leak at their campground. Mm-hmm. And then his wife was researching all the effects that propane can have on prenatal development, and it just like drove her crazy. And she was super stressed out about it. And like, that's great that she cares so much about raising a kid, but at the same time, it's like, oh man, really? Like, okay, I get that we haven't had exposure to like raw propane as that just wasn't a thing, but there was worse stuff like black mold, and we still happen. And you want to, you know, set your kid up to be the absolute best. And so we spent like 40 minutes marching around trying to find this propane leak just to make sure it wasn't a propane leak and seeing if we could stop it. Ended up being a skunk. Skunks and propane ended up, it smells really, really similar. I see. But it was like the fact that we went through this, and it was like, it really stressed her out. But we have access to way too much information that we have no qualifications to try to sift through. Yeah.
And the crazy thing is too,
and the likelihood that
sorry, the delay sucks so bad. I just cut you off. The thing that sucks too is that the stress levels are actually probably worse on the fetus than the propane or anything else is too. And like, this is the thing. So many women have such a hard time getting pregnant too. And they all, like, heard so many women say that like, as soon as they just gave up and they're like, ugh, like, forget it. I'm going to stop freaking out about this. It's just not going to happen. They get pregnant, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like all of a sudden they're relaxing and the body just takes over. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
there's a really cool.
Oh, are you going to point out Zach's comment in the chat?
Oh, actually, I can't see the chat. If you can link it to me, that would be great.
Oh, you can't. Oh, I'm pretty sure I said it so that you should be able to see it, but that's okay. I'll just read it out to you. Yeah, there you go. Live comments.
I've got it now.
There you go. So Zach, I like Zach's comment. He says, honestly, the ideal is both parents staying home. Yes, I agree. That would be really nice. Really nice.
No. I'm going to disagree. No? Zach, I'm disagreeing with you. No. If men don't have something to do, they're miserable.
But to stay home for like the first few weeks with your kid?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, definitely. But as far as like two parents staying home, just taking care of their kid is like, guys need something to do.
Sure.
Whether it's say you were to stay home and just like farm and live an agrarian lifestyle, sure, that's probably ideal. But if guys don't have that outlet, the number one contributor for like men's happiness is such a really hard and fairly garbage stat. But the number one contributor is what made guys feel, happy was effectiveness at their job. So that they were contributing to society and providing for their family. That was what made men the happiest. So whereas women reported meaningful relationships.
Sure.
So I'm just reading one of the comments. I'm like, what?
Are you going back and reading the whole thing? Don't go back. Don't go back and read it.
No. Yeah, I did go back. I was just like, I opened them up and happened to glance over. Is like, wow, that comment really threw me off. Like,
Mistakes
they completely have lost context. That You are my friend's wife. Yeah. Is that women really get the meaning like happiness or things that give them a sense of shalom, a sense of well-being and peace is the relationships that they form, and men, it's the work that they do to provide for the people that they care about.
Yeah.
Is the lag getting better?
I think so. Like, we haven't really talked over each other too much, so maybe it's getting better. But I will say, Josh, it's been almost 3 hours that we've been chatting, and as marvelous as this has been,
yeah,
this is going to be a doozy of a stream to leave on the internet. So maybe we could wrap it up. I guess, like, our debate was more of a conversation, but yeah, I don't know. Any final thoughts?
I do have a rebuttal to yours. Yeah.
Okay.
Final thoughts. As far as feminism ruining the patriarchy and then having women be the most affected is Sargon really pointed this out very well. I think women have lost a sense of duty to each other and to society. Feminism has really freed them from those shackles. Like you're saying, you experience this as guilt.
I wouldn't say freed
but in
them
doing so, they
is the right word.
Well, in a lot of respects, they gave them more to do and really degraded the things that they were good at. But the reason I still think men kind of get the raw deal here is because, well, unfortunately, they're still made to be the monsters. We see this in divorce courts. Things like rape culture, toxic masculinity being the dominant narratives of our culture is that anytime men start doing what is good for their families and what is right, it is called toxic. Telling women no, saying, a good joke is, how do you confuse a feminist? You tell her that she's not allowed to make you a sandwich.
Oh, that's so funny. It would totally work.
Yeah, because then it's like, or you even throw in, yeah, it's just, you're probably not up to the task. I don't know if you're competent enough to make me a sandwich.
Yeah, that's how you make her mad.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I'll do what I want. It's like, I doubt it. You probably could make it taste good. And because it's like, woman make me a sandwich is such that stereotype that it completely melts their ideology. If they make you a sandwich, well, they're in the kitchen. And if they don't make you a sandwich, they prove you right.
Yep. Yep.
So in all of this, it's really degraded femininity, but men are still the villain of this story, and they're treated as such. So when a man does what a man ought to do, which is learn to restrain his emotions, have good control of it, have good composure, go out, succeed, compete, is men can't compete against women if they have traditional values. It doesn't work. So like I say, the MGTOWs are really close. It's that men just need to go do other things. Ignore women, and women will not come to you, but women will find a way for you to trip over them. Become really good at what you do. Take care of your body, take care of your career.
What does that mean? Women will find a way to trip over you.
Okay, yeah. No, you will trip over them, as then they will just end up in your path. So
I see.
Yeah, go like follow the things that you're interested in and get really good at them. And then you'll meet people. It's more of a natural sort of state to be introduced. The other day I was having lunch with a friend, and I don't chase girls. I'm pretty just, focused on school. I don't really pay attention to girls, but I was just having lunch with a friend, and the waitress happened to mention that she was a marketing student that was looking for a job. And I've worked for 3 marketing firms in the past 4 years doing internships. So I wrote her down some names and just handed it to her, knowing full well that I probably could have left my number on that piece of paper, and she was probably okay with it. And that would have been fine. Just because of the way that our conversation would go. And she really thanked me, introduced herself. We had a great conversation. She was very thankful for me just saying, hey, call these people. I know that they're looking. And I said, I think you'll, from our interactions, I think you're going to do best with this person. Tell them that you met me. And that should be a good, is that that conversation just sort of happened naturally just by having lunch with a friend. And that's what I mean. You will just meet people. It's natural, just like you meet friends that you currently have, is, you know, follow your interest and then you meet people. But men are told, like, you can't do that. That's sexual harassment at someone's workplace. Is like, that's not okay. But that's really what guys should be doing, is get good at what you do. And we're treated like the villains if we do that.
Yeah, I see your point and I agree with you. I do think that that is what's happening for men for sure. And I think it just has huge ripple effects as well. You know, like this sexual harassment thing that you bring up, you know, I mean, it is affecting everywhere, you know, like men now are hesitant to even mentor, you know, women because they're afraid of what this will be. And I think, oh, what company was it? I forget. One company that, like, their policy was, if you look at another employee for more than 5 seconds, it's sexual harassment. Like, that's actually written in their policy.
BBC. That's BBC.
That's BBC. Oh no, there's another one too. Netflix. Oh, yeah. Netflix. Manuel says it's Netflix that has that too. You know, which is like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, yes, as much as this is happening and these just stories do make the news, at the end of the day, like in regular human interaction, okay, when you like strip away media and just go to like day-to-day life, okay, you're out with friends, you know, you stumble into a girl at school, you know, like your classmates or your wherever. I think most people, the average people, still kind of fall in this world where you have regular male-female interactions, and in general, you can kind of tell which women's are which girls are safe to hit on and which ones are likely to be, you know, a feminist about it. And you know, there's, I think, a lot of men still get by fairly well, and I think actually that the, you know, your advice is really good for men, and I think the men that do follow this, where they, you know, they find something to be passionate about, they let themselves fully pursue that. And the thing is, guys are good at this. You do have more obsessive qualities. You can do that. Let yourself be obsessive, pursue something, you know, and see people, get out, see people interact, and, you know, things still generally work out. And like, as much as we do have all these, you know, stupid, you know, rules that are coming into play and like trying to get more women into STEM and all this sort of stuff, it's still generally a meritocracy. Okay. Generally.
Yeah. Well,
it is. And so I think though, however, for women, if you play by the rules, like if you have an ideal scenario, okay, I'm an ideal scenario. You marry the man of your dreams. You're really happily married. You found a company with him. You all this stuff. Like, I'm breaking all the oppressive whatevers. I learned programming. I whatever. I'm the ideal case, and yet I carry this misery with me. And it is a very, very difficult process to free your mind of this. And you just have this stupid victim complex in everything you do. You know, when you see these women that, you know, they're like career women and they're powerhouse women, and they see oppression everywhere. Like Ronna Ambrose she's a politician here in Alberta. I'm sure you're familiar with her. I listened to her speak one time, and it was just like, you know, she's definitely one of those that I would call a powerhouse woman. And she has all these stories of like men that like told her she couldn't do it and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, yes, you will run into the occasional man that is going to tell you that. And like, look, I've watched enough McTell videos and read enough comments to know that like people still say things like this. But the reality is, for the average woman, you don't really encounter that much horrible oppression. And chances are, if they're saying something that's slightly oppressive, maybe there's a bit of truth to it too, that like if we had a bit of humility, we could like look at and interpret. But because we're just so sensitive and indoctrinated to be sensitive about all these things and filtering every circumstance as, you know, I don't want society to force me to do something this way, and like I'm the victim, we just are totally miserable, and we bring that misery into our marriages, we bring that misery into the office, we bring that misery into all our friendships and everything we do. And this is why I think women have it worse off than men, because as much as men have to deal with the monster that feminism has made us to be, it is, I think it's worse to be the monster, because at least men can have a vision and a purpose, and like you still know who you are. Whereas I think feminism has completely turned, it shot femininity in its face. We don't even know what it looks like anymore. It is so defigured femininity. We don't even know what the ideal is. We don't even know what we're pursuing, and we don't even know what success looks like. And even in a perfectly ideal scenario, it is really difficult to find that. And even now, you know, I heard one, I think Turd Flinging Monkey said this, where he said, like, even traditional conservative women are too feminist for his liking. And you know what? He's not wrong. Like, we have swallowed the pill so thoroughly that even those of us who want to reject it in every way, we don't even know how. Yeah. And there you have it.
Yeah, I guess even if you're a monster, you can still take half the stuff and just, you know, tweet the fact that, oh yeah, my husband abused me, and you win.
Sorry, what?
Oh, sorry, did I lag out again?
No, it's okay. I'm not sure I get your point.
Oh, is that even though like you have this situation, it's like women built this for themselves. You did this entirely to yourselves. It wasn't men doing this to you entirely. I guess like passive men, but I really see this fight as an entirely feminine thing. Like, guys can't do much against it because we can't fight it without being the oppressors. If women want change, they have to fight it themselves.
I disagree.
Okay.
Like, I mean, yes, women do have to fight it. We do have to fight ourselves. Like, I don't want to like absolve responsibility here at all. But I think too, like, okay, feminism, the thing is, it'd be nice if feminism was maybe just only something women believe. But this is what I said about MGTOWs too. The thing, my biggest critique of MGTOWs is actually that they've swallowed the feminist pill too. They believe in the patriarchy. They believe it's real. They just think that that's how it should be. You know, this idea that the genders cooperate and work together and fill different roles based on their abilities is like, oh, well, you know, the MGTOWs don't believe that. The feminists don't believe that. You know, they're not rejecting feminism. They believe the core premise of feminism. They just think it's a good thing. You know, and so it is a female problem.
Sorry.
Did you just like totally lagged out and missed all of that?
No, just the end of it. I switched to my hotspot instead of the Wi-Fi. So
okay, all right. Well,
yeah, it'll be fine now. Yes, I got the last of it. Is that TFM's basically agrees with the feminist. Yeah.
But so here's my rebuttal. Here's why I disagree. It's because yes, it is a feminism is a woman's problem, if you will. But the thing is, like, society ate the pill. We've all done it. Like, it's not just like that women are the only ones believing this. Like, you even grow up believing these things. And so I disagree that men shouldn't be the ones fighting, because to be honest, like, if I wasn't married to Emmanuel, and if Emmanuel wasn't in some ways, well, in so many ways, teaching me the value of the feminine role, I probably would still be some stupid raging feminist with 2 degrees working downtown or something stupid. You know, like, it's right. Like, well, actually, okay, I still have 2 degrees and I work downtown, but that was a bad example. But I mean, you know, like, there's just so much. Like, I think this is the thing, is that with feminism, it is a social problem. It's a society problem. We've all eaten the pill, and men have a crucial role to fill in countering that. And, you know, yes, maybe you're played out to be the villains, but you're not the villains in all eyes. And the thing is too, like, if you even look at the entertainment that people like ask people what their guilty pleasure entertainment is, and like women specifically, and hands down, they love the stuff where you have strong men and the cute little woman and the whatever. You know, anime's big in this.
Yeah.
And like,
I mean, 50 Shades of Grey is the best-selling female novel of all time.
There you go. Like, I haven't seen 50 Shades of Grey, and I can't really comment on that.
I haven't either, but
I've
seen the Sin video.
But I think it's still the like Taming of the Beast scenario, right? It's Beauty and the Beast kind of scenario, and that the reality is like that's still a core. Like, women still know what we want in a man. We just don't know what we want of ourselves. And I think in a lot of ways we shape ourselves in the image of what we believe the male ideal is. You know, and this is the thing too, where I think feminism adds this like horrible lens of looking at things. So for example, okay, let's say, you know, I see a woman on the street and she's really beautiful, and I go, oh gosh, like I wish I was that beautiful. Okay. Feminism takes that scenario and says, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Like, the only reason you feel insecure about yourself and feel like you should look beautiful like that is because, you know, men and are trying to shape you into what they want, and like they're in control of society, and it's the horrible patriarchy that's making you feel this way. Okay, so now not only do you still feel jealous and bad about yourself, but now you're also angry at men in society.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what feminism does. It like takes your like dark side, or like women's kind of negative desires, and it just like puts them on steroids and makes them so much worse. And I think
fat positivity.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and the thing is too, like this whole fat positivity movement, sorry, but they still don't feel great about themselves, but now they're also upset at everybody for it. You know, and it's just this horrible cycle that's really hard to break out of. At least men still have like a compass that points north relatively, and you are not, like, as much as it does, you do have men that will like try to be what they think women want, right? And they'll, you know, the Justin Trudeaus of the world that are like, men are terrible, toxic, blah blah, because they think that's what women want to hear.
Well, as much as we like to shit on Trudeau, he's still the leader of one of the biggest countries in the world.
Yeah, but okay, fine. I gotta stop using him as an example.
No, he's a good example of what a successful guy who has like a really successful cuttlefish. I mean, he shrugged off a sexual assault allegation. Like, that guy is almost bulletproof.
Yeah, but didn't he just like accidentally elbow her in the boob while he was getting attacked by journalists or something like that?
It almost doesn't matter, because more harmless tweets have ruined better men.
Sure, I guess so. But I think it's just like, as much as feminism has made the world a horrible place for everybody, I think that at least men still have a sense of identity. And I don't think men base their identity so much on women as women do on men. And like, we may still know what we want in a man secretly deep down, but it is very difficult to even, we don't have a compass that points north anymore. Our compass has been shot. And that's why, yes.
Interesting. I see, as all the feminist articles I've been reading recently is, man, I still want that guy in plaid and an axe that has like a furry chest and sweat dripping down his brow. Is like, I still think your compass points north. Guys just have a pretty obvious compass that points north.
It's a compass that points north for what we want in a man. It is not a compass that points north for what we know as successful in the successful filling of the feminine role. That's what I mean.
Oh, I mean,
like, our compass is the identity.
Yeah. Okay. Guys very easily know what they want in women. It's pretty obvious that compass tends to point north.
Yes, I see what you mean. I didn't really mean that compass. I meant like, you know, identity compass. But that works too.
that's also one of the differences between guys and girls. Sure. Guys just follow the stick of truth, and girls have this sort of more messy way of figuring stuff out. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd never really been able to dig into what the female perspective on it, because, you know, YouTube sucks and every single feminist is getting ratioed all the time and they don't get it. They just do not catch the narrative.
Yeah.
But I think one of my best, I got into an argument with a feminist one time, and she was just livid about my perspectives. And I said, you know, even in spite of all this, and this is why this is where the hypocrisy comes out. In spite of all this, you've been sitting here for 2 hours debating me, and there's something that's still inside of you that would be okay if I asked for your number. Is in spite of me being intransigent and just pissing her off with my perspectives.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that I had strong convictions, I presented, I was articulate, she still would have given me her number.
Mm-hmm.
And of course she was like, oh, no, but it was the pause that was like, the red flush that really tells all.
Yeah, it tells all. And again, you make my point, right? And this is why I think, you know, even as much as you say men are painted as the villain, like this is the thing. Okay, the woman's mad at you. You're debating. You're saying things that offend her. She'll still take your number, and she'll probably still go on a date, and she'll probably have a great time.
Because I'm 6'3", I'm articulate, and I present well. Whereas guys who are not in the kind of situation that I'm in get thrown to the wayside. And
yes, but they can also learn those traits. Like they can't grow, you know, they can't grow to 6 foot, whatever. But but you know, like there is, right, we talked about humor and the role that this plays as well. You know, but the thing is too, this isn't something that's feminism. Like this has been men's challenge from the origin of humanity. This is not made worse by feminism per se. I mean, yes, you know, women are harder to get along with now. Yeah. But you know, the thing is, there's still the average woman still wants, even the feminists still know that they want, you know, what they want in a man.
Yeah, so I guess guys are killing themselves at surprisingly high rates, and no one's paying attention to it. It's like my strongest point is really the social side of this, as far as 3 out of 7. I know that's a weird stat, but I don't know why they chose it. But 3 out of 7 boys in grade school are diagnosed with ADHD. And then of that demographic, 7 out of 10 are medicated. And part of that is because, you know, they can't sit still for long periods of time. They have difficulty reading and trouble with the takeaways. Yeah. Well, the girls don't have
for being boys.
Yeah, they're being medicated for being boys. And we have no idea what the effects of these medications are long-term, medicated from a really young age. I was 25. And that was the first time I ever took Adderall to help me get through college. And it made a world of difference. All of a sudden I could get what was 4 hours work done in usually about an hour. It improved. And I was a classic case of ADHD, but I wasn't touching this medication. We did it through discipline and other things. My marks suffered. I didn't go to Duke, but I still got into a good college. But that's where men are really getting this raw deal is, well, they're getting fed these narratives that they don't know how to lead women out of their own trap. And there's sort of an intransigent nature, and I'm an exception. I still think I'm a bit of an exception, is that I would love to see what a 5'3" scrawny engineer has to say about all this. Because the other thing is, if you take an engineer, you take an engineer with a 3.8 and you put those applications on a desk, and one of them is a woman, the other guy's a man, with equal, they're taking the girl because of the diversity. Even though the girl's probably going to work for 5 years, get married, have kids. Okay. They're going to take the guy. So the guys have to wait longer before getting into the workplace. And the other thing is that online dating is so skewed towards women. And I really think that has to do with feminism, is that this idea of feminism turns female sexuality to basically be male. Well, you end up with 60% of women competing for 20% of men, shagging the 20% of men, and then getting pissed that there are no good guys because this minority of men are just taking advantage of all the tail that they're being offered. So, and like, I don't want to say we need to democratize things. I'm saying that the lack of female relationships in male life that value strong masculine traits has really toxified the situation, that these guys are now like 28, 29, getting on with their career, and now they're dating the college age girls. So but a lot of those guys have sort of, as long as they can make it to then, because so many of the guys that I know have dropped out, not dropped out of college, but dropped out of life. 67% of all college grads are girls. So men, especially white men, have started not even pursuing the things that would allow for the exposure of the feminine traits. And I think a lot of that has to do with, well, success is because of penis, and well, that's it. And it's like, we can't even get to the point where you can be a woman because, I mean, we're just going and working at gas stations or committing suicide or just, porn. Yeah,
but it's not really all that dramatic in that, like, again, if it was really so much like, okay, the graduation levels and all this stuff, yeah. But the reality is too, you still have women that are dropping out of these careers afterwards to be filled by men, this is one argument the McTell community makes quite well, I think, because they say we're wasting social resources by training up all these women who are going to drop out of careers. And so, yes, it's true that like we do have all these ridiculous, like affirmative hiring and all this kind of stuff that are skewing things and they're making it more difficult for men. However, as the trend proceeds too, these women end up dropping out anyway.
They're not being filled by white men. They're, yes, we are reading the comments. Hello. We are doing good.
Thank you for joining us.
This is sort of the tail end, but man, when I first discovered the comments, they were, there was one I did not expect. Just scroll up. It's weird.
Yeah. This stream was to help me get better used to being live. And one thing I've learned is to read the comments sparingly.
Yeah, even I'm ashamed of that one.
Yeah.
So this is sort of weird, yes, but they're not being filled by domestic men. There is actually a lack of engineers with experience in their 30s. So if you look at job postings, there is a need for skilled workers in these technical degrees that have the 4 to 6 years of experience.
Yeah.
And you know what do you know what they're doing? They're hiring foreign workers. So they're bringing in technical engineers from India and other places around the world, other men to fill these roles. So our country is not, our men here are not jumping into those roles anymore.
I'm going to invite, I don't know how to say your name, Lukman Ahmed to join us. He wants to join the chat, so I'm going to send him the link.
Okay.
You ready for this? Okay. We are at the tail end of our discussion. I actually tried to wrap it up like 20 minutes ago, but we are still going. But all right. Let's do this. So that link will let you join the session.
This will be interesting.
It will be interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe you can tell us how to say his name. All right. Well, whenever he joins.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. So that's sort of my pushback against that, is that men aren't even getting to the point where they can help women get out of it. Is like they are just almost non-existent anymore.
Well, what do you think it takes for men to help a woman get out of it? Like, because you're talking about employment here. I think in my mind, like these are they are certainly issues. Okay. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not defending feminism and the disaster that it has caused in any way. Oh, he says, that's not what I meant. I meant to just chat and you can also read my comments. Oh, I see.
Sure.
Great. Well, no problem. All right. And Zach says, we're still going. Yes, Zach, we are still going. But
yeah, we kind of got hung up right at the very end trying to conclude is like, we really got to the core of the debate instead of anecdotes for the most part.
It's good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But what I will say is, like, I think these are still material concerns. Like, when I think the core of it is, okay, I'm a Christian. I believe that the core of everything, the purpose of life on this earth, really is, you know, for the development and sanctification of your own soul. Like, the state of soul is above all other things. And so I think when I look at the damage of feminism and what, you know, it does, like, I do prioritize that the impact on the psychology and like the state of soul and mind over some of these material concerns. Yes, I do think there's a ton of unfair things that happen. You know, I think the affirmative hiring and that kind of stuff is trash. But but nevertheless, it's not as devastating, I think, to the blow that it takes to, you know, one's identity and understanding of how to grow, how to treat people well, how to, you know, have a higher way of thinking and evaluating situations. And I think this is the problem. And I said this before, where I think feminism has kind of put blinders on us, where it's like we can't even see our own flaws because we're so focused on our own victimhood. And I think this is it. Feminism has actually created this same phenomenon in men, which I think is devastating, where now, you know, you have these men's rights activist groups that are propping up. And the thing is, they are pointing out very valid concerns, like you are, you know, the difficulties in employment, suicide, you know, divorce, the whole divorce and custody and that whole thing. Like, they're pointing out horrible injustices. However, the very fact that they feel like they need to point these out and to be focused on victimhood is because feminism has feminism has brought them under attack. You know, you say feminism has turned women into monsters, and feminism points at you guys and calls you the monsters for being who you are. And what it's done is we are the monsters because we're so focused on our own victimhood that we can't actually be decent human beings. And you are also so focused on your own victimhood in some ways that you have the suicide rates, you have these men's rights, communities rising up. And I think at the root of it, that's where the devastation really, really takes hold. It's changed our mentalities. It's changed how we view the world. It's changed our hope in the world. It's changed our purpose. And it's changed our understanding of who we are and what's worth fighting for. And I think that that's really the core of it all. And I think in the end, we created this stream where we could have like men and women, like who's most negatively affected by feminism. The reality is feminism shot everybody in the face twice over, and we know it's true.
That was kind of the funny part that when we were discussing, I don't know. Ahmed, interesting. I still don't think that sticking women in plastic bags is the way to deal with them either. So I don't know if we'd end up having a good discussion about that. Is that it's really been detracting from both of us, in that men no longer have the ability to become men, and that also ends up ruining women. And it's like we kind of got the blind leading the blind on this one. And we're virtue signaling about who's more oppressed, which just makes us part of the problem.
I think in a lot of ways, the fact that we're even talking about oppression is like, this is the thing. I think all these narratives, they bring oppression. It's all, you talk about intersectional feminism and all this stuff, and that's exactly what it is. It's just this hierarchy of oppression. And we've done this stream relatively self-aware, knowing that the title is kind of facetious in a lot of ways. But But really, this has just been an excuse to rant about how feminism is ruining everyone's lives for 3.5 hours. But anyway, I do think that we should probably cut it off here. But I just want to say thank you to everyone in the chat that joined us. And thanks to anyone who tunes in and watches this later, if you can ever get through 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe this is good therapy. If you're like really angry with feminism, you can just listen to us bash feminism for 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so far this conversation has been better content than any of the TED Talks I listened to.
Yeah. Sad but true. The state of YouTube.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just funny because all of those videos get ratioed, and it's because of misogyny. It has nothing to do with you just having bad content.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Should we address comments?
I don't know. Like, it's 3.5 hours. It's a lot. Ludwig, thank you so much for joining us. You know, I'll just address Ahmed's comments of you are absolutely right. You know, it is an issue, and it's you know, free the nip and these kind of movements are just a lovely example of how, you know, crazy feminism has brought things. But we are reading your comments. We do see them, but we are going to wrap up the stream.
I don't think that it's the men that are saying wear less and less clothes. They're just kind of okay with it.
Yeah,
Free the nipple is not a male movement.
Yeah, free the nipple is not actually a male movement. It is definitely a female-led movement.
Yeah,
but,
guys are the ones who say cover up, but I also don't, you know, believe in the cover up. Dress modestly, you know, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that's part of what, you know, one of the issues with feminism is that it tells us you should be like men. You know, they look at men and they try to compare. Free the nip is very much that kind of concept of, oh, well, if men don't have to cover theirs, why should we cover ours? You know, and this idea. But anyway, they are men who started this idea. I don't know if it's actually men that started it. I know it seems like that's probably probable, but probably probable. That's a silly statement in and of itself. But anyway, Josh, you look like you're actually frozen. Uh-oh. All right. Well, in that case, guys, I am going to end the stream now, given that we just lost Josh. Thank you so much for tuning in. And, you know, maybe we'll do another one sometime, perhaps on another topic. But have a good night, everyone. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.